STEAM is a sort of a new concept, and I think it's a response, in large part, to the fact that there's STEAM is a sort of a new concept, and I think it's a response, in large part, to the wonderful things that you could do. The fact that there's STEAM is a sort of a new concept, and I think it's a response, in large part, to the wonderful things that you could do.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Jimmy,
Hey, Commissioner, how are you?
Jimmy, quick question for you. I was going to recognize the mayor after I say a couple intro comments, and I was also planning to tee up Eric for some intro. Did you want me or you, Alina, in between the mayor and Eric, or should I go straight to Eric?
Go straight to Eric. No need to steal his thunder.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm having a little hard time hearing you all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can
I can
you hear me? Can you hear me
We
now?
have a user error. Hang on.
All right. Oh.
All right.
Commissioner, while we wait, just wanted to make sure you knew we were asked today to add to your agenda for the 22nd, the generator discussion that got deferred off of yesterday. So
Excellent.
hopefully you're good with that, right?
I'm great with that. That's a good discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Naima's going to publish a supplemental, but I want to make sure you knew that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, David. How are you?
Mark, I think you're always the first to arrive. You're so prompt. You know, we could give you a credit for promptness when you and I forget to take our hand down. We should give you a $5 credit back for your promptness.
Thank you, David. That's very kind. And I think we have a fund that Alina is working on for a serious and worthwhile cause. We could start putting the money towards that.
I think we could now, but what I don't want you to do is intentionally leave your hand up several times. Just as an excuse. You don't need an excuse to fund the fund. Just get the checkbook out, you know?
Okay, let's get her. Alina, that's so wonderful what you and Commissioner Steinberg did. And please let us all know how
Thank
we
you.
can help. I'm sure all of us, I know I personally have been touched by that issue in a couple different instances.
Thank
And
you. I've been doing it for 20 years, and there
That's
isn't a
great.
year that goes by that I don't have 2, 3, 4 friends or family diagnosed with breast cancer. It's crazy. It's the most common form of cancer in women, with the exception of skin cancer. So it's a tough issue.
Delina, what is the overall incident rate in the United States? Do you know, like what's the
you know,
percentage?
I know that the survivor data is very, very good with early detection. It's almost like 80%, which is incredible. I have 3 friends that have actually died. And to me, it's just crazy that in this day and age that I still have 3 friends that have died of breast cancer. But I have probably, if I did the math, I probably have 30 friends or family that have been diagnosed, and they're all, thank God, doing well, and they're well into the 5-10 year mark. So early detection is key. One of the things I used to do is I used to always bring the mammogram. The Jackson actually has the mobile mammogram truck to the downtown government center. We would do like a full day of mammograms there. But I chaired the community-wide campaign 3 times in the last 20 years. And the last time I did it was right before I retired. And I actually raised over $400,000 in the walk, which, you know, if you know anything about walks, it's hard to raise that kind of money for a walk. But it's a very grassroots event that the American Cancer Society does. It's all about survivors and honoring survivors and helping them. So I'm, you know, I get tired of asking. It gets hard to ask people for money, but I can't stop.
Yeah. The money that you raised, like when you were the chair, what was a primary use? Was that for examinations or?
Yeah, making strides it's an American Cancer Society event. It happens all over the country. Ours in Miami-Dade County, it was actually not very vibrant 20 years ago, and now it is. It's hosted at Marlins Park. This year, it's going to be a virtual event. And it goes everything from direct services, like they have very direct, like navigation type services where they, you know, drive people to chemo treatments, to education, early detection, payment, you know, for direct services, wigs. I mean, everything you could possibly think of that someone going through chemo has to go through. And interestingly enough, men get breast cancer too at a rate that I didn't know anything about. And I had 2 employees, one of them diagnosed with breast cancer in the last 5 years. And so I started and participated with the American Cancer Society in something called Real Men Wear Pink, which is a parallel event that takes place in October. And Miami Beach actually has 2 men participating, Nelson Jacome, our chief engineer, and our major from police, who is actually the president of the Chiefs of Police, David De La Espriella, is also participating. So both events run on parallel paths, and they raise money for everything that the American Cancer Society does in terms of breast cancer. But it's been a very tough year for them. I mean, obviously they're down significantly, like all nonprofits are and all of these good causes are. So hopefully we can make a difference and get ready for next year is all I think anybody can do.
You're definitely making a difference, Alina, and please let us know, and let me personally know anything I can do to help you and keep up.
Well, we're going to create a Miami Beach team. That's my goal.
I love it.
And I'll make sure to send out the link so everybody can participate in some virtual way and contribute.
Wonderful. So I think I just want to, if we could have a sound check. I think I see Mayor Gelber's with us, Commissioner.
Something's wrong with my, how come it's not showing it? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, I'm in.
You're all good there, Mayor? We got Commissioner Richardson, so I see Commissioner Minor, Commissioner Steinberg. I know that Commissioner Gongora is going to be late. I hope Commissioner Areola will be with us any minute. But Tanya, PJ, can we do a quick sound video check? Because I would like to start the meeting.
Hi, everybody. This is Raul. Hi, everybody.
Great.
I'm on audio.
Oh, wonderful, Raul. That's great.
All right, so let's go ahead and get the sound check. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Richardson.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Alina.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Steinberg.
Good afternoon, and I let staff know that I'm going to be having to leave a little early tomorrow with the high holidays and everything getting ready, and there's a lot going on. So I'll do my best to stay as long as I can.
That's great.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. City Manager.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Eric.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Minor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nick.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tanya.
Good afternoon, PJ.
All right. And did I get Commissioner Richardson?
Yes, only
All
one.
right.
This is twice. I actually have a question for the chair, if you know. I notice on the attendees, there's a stenographer. Is that someone that's been hired by the city, or is that a third party?
That is a third party. We did not hire a stenographer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Did you check me? Did you check me?
Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor. My guy.
Haven't seen you since last night.
Yeah, I miss everyone. But with that said, PJ, are we ready to roll?
Yes, we're ready to roll. I'm going to cue
Okay.
you up in 5 seconds.
Okay.
I'm going to cue you up in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the September 17th Special Land Use Sustainability Committee meeting, where we're having an Art Deco Cultural District Reimagine workshop. I'm Vice Mayor Mark Samuelin, and we are having this meeting virtually due to the COVID pandemic. I want to first recognize and thank everyone who put this all together, especially Eric Carpenter and members of the city administration who worked so hard and diligently to get us ready for what I think is going to be a very informative discussion. We're talking about the reimagined Art Deco Cultural District, an extremely important topic. And our goal today really is to give feedback broadly to the city administration and also on a few specific issues. So one request I have to our presenters, very helpful to be clear up front. If there's a question or idea that you want feedback on, say that early. And when you get that feedback or head nod one way or the other, it's a good time to maybe accelerate the conversation. So let's say very focused on issues where you want some directional feedback. I want to be clear that today is a workshop. We are not going to take any action. There will be no votes. And as is typical for a workshop, we are not going to have a public hearing with public comment. We have received significant public comment in advance. We look forward to more public comment that will come after. And of course, all of these items and matters will come back to the commission where the public will have ample opportunity to be heard. And we welcome that as always. The way this meeting is set up, and to my colleagues, you've seen that we're going to have 6 presentations, discussion topics, and then we have 3 specific times when the commissioners and the mayor will have time to interject. So my ask is that we let our presenters present. They will stay on time, I promise you that. And then we will engage. I'm pretty good at the hands up. I am trying to get us in a good posture, but I definitely don't do a good job as Mayor Gelber does. So do bear with me on that. In terms of where we are in the process, frankly, our next steps will be what happens in the next few hours. So we'll do a pulse check at the end of this meeting. Perhaps some things are ready to move forward. If we're enjoying this process so much, maybe someone will say we should do this again, but we'll see where we're at and we'll make that decision as a team. I have 2 hats today. I'm obviously going to contribute. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, but I'm also your chair, and I'm going to be a little bit of a tough time master because I know we got things to go. So with that, here's what we're going to do. In a second, I'm going to invite Mayor Gelber to give us a couple introductory comments, who will then, we'll hear from Eric Carpenter, who will also give a view from the administration. And then we're going to roll right into our first presentation of Chief Clement. So I think we're good to go unless anyone has any questions on anything I said so far. I see some, oh, Commissioner Minor.
Just following up,
Please.
Vice Mayor, you mentioned there'll be 3 opportunities for the commissioners to comment. When are those?
Thank you for that question. After the safety and security presentation at 1:30, we have a half hour for our comments. At 2:40, after the 3 subsequent presentations, we have another half hour. And then at 3:45 to 4:45, we have a full hour. Plenty of time for us to engage. Good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, Mayor had shown great leadership getting us to this point, and I would ask him to, if he'd like to say a few comments to us.
Yeah, I do. And thank you, Mark, Mr. Chairman, and to all my colleagues, and to Jimmy Morales, our manager, and his staff. Thank you all, and thank you for this workshop. I want to lay this out a little bit because I think it's a pretty important moment for all of us. You know, I've lived in the city for 59 years, and it is, no question, this particular area we're talking about is the most interesting and beautiful, if not stunning, place in the world. The architecture, the weather, I mean, everything, the green space and the history. And I don't mean the history of when the Weintraub brothers broke my nose in 1977 in front of the Netherlands Hotel in Loomis Park. I mean the history of the folks in World War II, like my dad training on Ocean Drive, and Barbara Chapman finding the architecture and discovering it and letting and inspiring our community to preserve it. We've, you know, the movies that have been there, from Bad Boys to Clam Bake, the parades, the diversity, it's all an amazing place. But it's also gone through so many iterations. When I was young, it was pretty decrepit. There was not a whole lot of activity at all, in fact. And then a few people like Tony Goldman, Craig Robbins, and Chris Blackwell decided they wanted to invest in it. So what we did is we created essentially at that time, because we wanted to get development there, we created accessory uses for hotels, bars, and restaurants. The idea being that they would inspire investment. And in fact, it worked. I lived in a few places in South Beach, including at 820 Ocean Drive, right next to the News Cafe, above a restaurant called OG's in the early 90s. It was, that whole area was busy. Restaurants were excellent. There was no hawking. It was a destination for visitors and residents alike. But now 30 years later, it has changed. While the bars and restaurants might have been there to help the hotels, it feels like that's been reversed a little bit, and hotels seem like the accessory uses today. I think we have to come to an agreement that what is known as the entertainment district just isn't working for our city. Maybe it's a victim of its own success, but it has felt like it's just too difficult to manage. Security has become too expensive and more than that, unsafe. Our police are asked to do things that other police forces will do now and again, and they have to do things regularly, which is uncomfortable. Feels a little bit too much like Bourbon Street on the beach, and more than the kind of destination where what we want it to be. People come here, too many, to do what they wouldn't do in their own hometowns. And you know, when I see the promoted party slogans that say, "Come South Beach, anything goes, let's go wild party, no rules," I wonder, you know, if that's really what our community expects, is if that's the welcome sign we want. But more than anything else, and I think we have to recognize this, it's not really compatible with the art and culture destination that we have become in the last 10 or 20 years. We have made that who we are, and you see it everywhere in the city. And I'm just not convinced that the profile of the entertainment district today is that. And we've tried to address it in so many ways. We've had many blue ribbon committees. I've had one since I was mayor. We've added police. We got rid of the noise exemption this year. We went after the promoted parties. We increased penalties for underage drinking. We passed legislation tying a code of conduct to sidewalk cafes to get rid of the hawking and the other things. We tried to police our way out. We've done programming. We've tried to program our way out, but nothing has, I think, fundamentally changed the dynamic. So we have to do something more than we've done. We need to change the essential nature of the district, not cosmetically, but fundamentally. And so the purpose is not to diminish the area, but to celebrate it. And I think we have to come in to this with really a belief that we can do something that works for our city's identity, not necessarily with just sticks, but also more importantly with carrots. As you will see, many of the ideas actually are incentives to try to promote the kind of industries that we think should be there. So what you're going to hear today is really somewhat what I think is really terrific, in a sense that when I talked to the manager and his staff, Jimmy really challenged his staff to deliver more than a cosmetic change to this area, but to put together a series of ideas that would alter the nature of the district so that it would become the kind of destination that I think we all want it to be. And I want to commend his staff, from Eric to all of the folks that you're going to hear from. The ideas and the approaches are varied, and they address every aspect of the district. Some are small and some are huge, from safety and security to activations to targeting industries, to incentives, to branding, to transportation, to zoning. All of these areas are addressed, and they're addressed deeply. And the purpose is to reestablish this district as what it can be, not what it is right now. There will most certainly be entertainment, but it won't be an anything goes destination. I think that's the way I think of it. So the purpose of this meeting, and I want to try to put this in context, is to start this process and engage it in a very informed way to create a community discussion among the commission and among the community. Today, I don't expect us to decide on any issues. I just thought it important to put these ideas on the table so they can be considered, so you can understand them, and we can begin the process of deciding whether we want to do some or all of them. There's no reason for community input today, because anything we look at is going to go back to this committee or others, back to a commission for at least twice, back to another committee perhaps. So they're all going to get very ample public input. The purpose here is so that you can socialize yourselves and the public can socialize itself to the possibilities of what we're talking about. I hope that nobody has a knee-jerk reaction to anything that's a big change. I think it's important that you all not be timid. I've already been lobbied by many to leave their business alone, to put them into a special category. And I understand that this is people's livelihoods and why they would be so protective. I understand that. But I also know that we're going to be thoughtful and informed. We're not going to do something rash, and we're going to listen to everything. So I would wait for those decisions until we really get a chance to play around with these ideas. But I think at the end of the day, the purpose here is not to be punitive, but to figure out a way where all of the goals of a beautiful place and a special place can be met. And I know we can do it. I have a lot of confidence in the staff, and I have a lot of confidence in my colleagues. So with that, I want to thank Commissioner Sammerlin for organizing this. But we need to be decisive once we pick a direction, and we need to let people know that what we want and how we're going to get there, and we'll listen to them and we'll inform our decision making with them. But this is going to be our decisions. This is why people elect us. So good luck, and thank you all for your attention today.
Thank you, Mayor, for those helpful comments and getting us rolling. Let me now recognize Eric Carpenter from the City Administration, who has led this fine effort to get us positioned for today.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman of the committee, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney. Appreciate the opportunity to present before you today some thoughtful work that was prepared by your city staff. And to kick it all off, I'd like to ask the communications department, who put together a wonderful video, to get us started with playing that video.
Throughout the years, Miami Beach has represented many brands as the city has evolved through both thriving times and challenges over its 100-plus-year history. From the glitz and glamour in the 50s with the debut of iconic hotels, to becoming a destination for retirees and refugees in the 70s, only to again become the place to be with the launch of Miami Vice, an influx of artists, and a newfound appreciation for the pastel hues of its Art Deco architecture. Miami Beach is once again experiencing a change in brand. Each year, thousands of tourists flock to the urban island to view some of the best and most sought-after arts and cultural experiences in the world. Memorial Day weekend and spring break have also brought a continued increased number of visitors to the city yearly. All of this is in conjunction to the changing face of businesses, neighborhoods, sea level rise adaptations, and the current climate that COVID-19 has brought us. Now is the ideal time to take a step back and emerge from the pandemic with the full brand realignment that creates a strong identity and encompasses all areas and messages within Miami Beach. A rebranding that will embolden our presence in the arts and culture arena, create a strong economic development program, and solidify our presence as one of the top destinations in the world.
So I want to thank Tanya and her team for that amazing video to get us started off on the right foot. I want to talk a little bit about the district. Ocean Drive, Collins, and Washington have gone through a number of metamorphosis over the years, revitalization, whatever you want to call it. Long history of planning analysis. Miami Beach Art Deco district done in the early 80s, the Miami Beach Art Deco district time future planning study, the Ocean Drive planning and urban design strategy, the Schulman plan for Miami Beach, and the Ziskovich Washington Avenue vision and master plan. We used all of these documents to help inform our process, but we didn't feel like we were shackled to any of them. Ultimately, we based our whole analysis on the fact that Miami Beach is a magic place. Unfortunately, the consensus right now is that some of that magic is dulled. We have information that we've seen that shows that the cost to provide services to the area has exceeded revenue in recent years. Calls for code enforcement are extremely high in this district. And over the last 3 years alone, we've passed over 20 municipal ordinances to try and control what everybody feels is unfortunately a district that's headed in the wrong direction. The task before us all is to determine how to bring the magic back. On July 29th, the administration was asked to bring to this particular meeting a comprehensive strategy to address concerns in the MSC and CD2 districts. The discussion today will center around ideas and suggestions from a multidisciplinary working group of city staff to help find ways to both address concerns and incentivize change in this new Art Deco cultural district. It's important to note that today is not the finish line, but the starting line for these discussions. No matter what happens today, there'll be needs to have many additional public discussions regarding each policy or incentive. We approved yesterday the contract to enlist the services of a very talented team of consultants to take any feedback from today and build on it. The one item that we know for sure is that the constituents of Miami Beach have entrusted us with over 30 million general obligation fund dollars to help bring about the change that all of us want to see for the district. And in order to accomplish that, we need to take a holistic approach. The discussion today will be broken down into 6 categories. I think we've touched on: safety, security, activation, target industries and incentives, branding, transportation and transit, and zoning amendments. I would be remiss if I didn't say a very heartfelt thank you to all of the very hard-working individuals on this city team that pulled this all together. They're much too numerous to mention right now, but you're going to see many of them today during the course of our discussion. And I just want to say thank you for all of your great effort. And with that, I will hand it over to Chief Clemens to talk to us about the first category, safety and security.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Manager, Mr. Assistant City Manager as well. So my opportunity and my privilege to be able to lead this off with regards to what the police department wants to do and the tasks that we want to undertake as we go into the Art Deco Cultural District reimaging aspect, if you will, in the plan. Our plan is kind of based on what we experienced from March 16th on, which was the beginning of COVID. and that is really for the most part focusing on increased visibility. During the time where we were going through COVID and the department was responding to it, we increased our staffing numbers on the street considerably in order to be able to deal with the many nuances associated with the pandemic and what we as a police department were having to encounter and engage with. What we found was that having the increased staffing helped us out immensely as it pertains to the challenges associated with policing the city. Because again, we still have the allure. People still want to come here, even regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic out there or not. And moreover, what our intent was in increasing those numbers, obviously, was to provide people with a safe feeling. So during the summer months, what we did was we really looked at our staffing plans and we looked at our staffing configurations, and we tried to be able to go ahead and to, if you will, to go ahead and to look at better ways or more effective ways of putting more officers on the street. And through a series of obviously some, I call them very challenging sessions, we were able to go ahead and do just that as it pertains to the ABCD in particular. So with that, I'll go into kind of what we accomplished with that particular area as a result of our efforts. Next slide, please. The Miami Beach Police Department staffing plan is comprised of basically a comprehensive review of staffing allocations department-wide. As such, the Art Deco Cultural District will benefit from the reallocation of police personnel. So what that meant was we looked at certain departments and we asked ourselves, do we really need to have as many people within that particular section as we need to, or can we reappropriate people out into patrol and increase our presence out there? And we did that. We were also able to look at people that did not count against our minimums and also plug them into the actual effort. So our current staffing allocation for the district prior to this past Monday was 15 officers per day. So just to give you an idea, we have 3 shifts per day. Obviously, they're 10-hour shifts with 2-hour overlaps. And what we did was we looked at that number and we collectively decided that was not nearly enough in order to be able to deal with the challenges of not just policing Ocean Drive, but policing the beach and Collins Avenue, and then also the east side of the street on Washington Avenue, going from 5th all the way up to 15th Street. We felt the need in order to be able to increase that based on not necessarily anything that was bad that was going on within the area, but the challenges associated with with people coming back into the city during the summer months, and then the opportunists that were out there that would take advantage of that, and again, obviously look to go ahead and commit crimes against those people. So what we did was, and then again, it's as noted on the screen, beginning Monday, September 14th, we reappropriated people into the staffing plan so that more officers were there and would be available within the ADCD. How did I do that? Well, what we did was we started moving days off. We reappropriated people from their weekends, if you will, and we created more flexibility as it pertains to staffing the district. So you can see down on the slide there, it says on weekdays, prior to the 14th, we had an average of 15. And what we did after the 14th was we went up to 25 to 27 officers per day. On weekends, they said that the numbers increased to an average of 35 officers per day. But when fully staffed, we're at 40 on Saturday and Sunday. So again, that's a tremendous number when you're starting to deal with putting people in places where they're going to make a difference. But on top of that, we also went ahead and we moved the hours for the ADCD for the afternoon shift. And what we did was instead of having them from a 2 p.m. to 12 a.m. 10-hour shift, we moved those hours to 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. so that between 10 p.m. and let's say 2:30, because we do have to go back to the station at the end of the shift, we could have close to 35 to 40 officers on this. Actually, let me back up. It's 30 to 35 officers that are on the street, depending on the allocation, specifically within the ABCD. And that helps right now. It's helping right now with the curfew. It's helping right now with other issues that come up during that time frame. Whether there be larger crowds, whether we need to be able to deploy people because of an event that's going on. And we're better able now to go ahead and to really, for the most part, address the challenges, which also include the beach area, because people often sneak out to the beach, through other, whether it be through the beach walk or whether they come up from the SOFNA areas and go out on the beach. And, we're now able to designate and an appropriate number of ATV officers out there that can ensure that they know that the beach is closed. Next slide, please. So with that, again, we've also gone ahead and with that approach, we now have the bodies in place. We're looking at now layering how we go ahead and we staff that. So for example, I mentioned ATVs in the previous slide. We now have the ability, not only on days and afternoons, but also on midnight shifts, to be able to put officers out there on ATV to monitor the activities, that, if you will, on the beach. Over the years, I've seen some really terrible crimes that have occurred there, and again, what we're trying to obviously do is to minimize that. And I can tell you that with the officers that we had out there and the minimal presence that we had out there, we've been able to do just that, which is really, for the most part, it's a tribute to the men and women of Miami Beach, and particularly on the midnight shift, where again they're out there and they have 7 miles of beachfront that they have to go ahead and to address, but most specifically probably from South Point all the way up to Lincoln Road and the beach, where most people seem to congregate. So as we go further inland, we have officers that be on mules, which will navigate, for lack of a better term, the Plymouth Park area and the seawall area, where people tend to congregate. Obviously, there's activities out there that we're concerned about as it pertains to narcotics use and obviously drinking and open container violations as well. So we're able to now to address that as well as the activity that goes on to the park. We're reintroducing something that I'm obviously very passionate about, and that's bicycles, the bicycle deployment onto Ocean Drive itself. Back in the early 90s, I was a part of the first bicycle unit that was out on Ocean Drive, and was very proud of the work that we did. We had 7 officers that were out there, and we were only there from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. And we didn't have 7-day-a-week coverage, but the days that we were there, we were extremely proactive, and we really took care of what was going on there, and that's going to be what those bicycle officers are tasked with. Moving further west, Collins Avenue, we will have a uniform presence there that will be in vehicles mostly traversing, going back up and down Collins Avenue, but also tasked with doing parking walks. The parking walk process, or the parking walk philosophy, it started, if you will, in January of this year, and obviously things got kind of sidetracked when we hit March with COVID. But since we've gone ahead and we've started to open up the city in segments due to the easing of the emergency orders, we've now started to re-implement the park and walk details, and our captains are very proactive in doing that. In particular, in areas 1 and area 4, which is our south end of our city. It's our way of being able to go back and to connect with the community and to really stress the community policing philosophy. Obviously, we have our challenges. We have a very hesitant and very, again, cautious police force right now that's fully aware of everything that's going around in society, and the trials and tribulations that are happening in cities around the country. But they've also been told, on numerous occasions, and we'll continue to drive home the point that we have a job to do, and we need to go out and we need to do it, and that's part of it as well. Now, that's not just going to be on Collins Avenue, and by that I mean the parking lot details as well. It'll be on Ocean Drive. We're now currently going ahead and deploying our motor units on to the beach and baywalk areas, in order to be able to address some issues there as well. So we're really looking to go ahead and to do some things that we have not done in recent times, and really kind of make it the status quo for as we move forward in the future. So next slide, please. Training. For the most part, we've created a program presentation for each establishment within the Deco Cultural District that serves alcohol. We're anticipating, and by that I mean, our approach to this is that when the city does open up fully, that we're going to be dealing with the same challenges within the ADCD as we did prior to the onset of the pandemic and the restrictions on the area businesses. We have found that there needs to be more of a connection between the police department and the alcohol establishments or the business establishments that serve alcohol, primarily in order to be able to go ahead and to encourage de-escalation techniques or the teaching of de-escalation techniques from our department, obviously to their business establishments, because of some things that we've seen recently. We've got some situations that have occurred in the past where we believe that security within the venue actually started the confrontation or started a confrontation that ultimately ended up in becoming a police matter when we received it via 911 call, or whether we were flagged down, or whether we clearly saw that there was a problem at the establishment and had to at that point in time intervene. There's some establishments out there that take this very seriously and have trained their personnel very well, and then there's some that have not done as well as we would like for them to do. But what we'd like to be able to establish is that it become a part of their operational practices, and giving us the opportunity to get to, obviously, to go ahead and to talk to them about these techniques that we're even teaching our officers now in an effort to try to avoid some of these confrontations. So this de-escalation training for establishments will be specifically for those that employ security staff. And again, again, it will be offered now, and obviously in the future, we would hope it would become more a permanent part of their operational components. So next slide, please. Off-duty police officers, as you well know, we've had the TOPS program that has been, for lack of a better term, suspended because we have not had the opportunity to really deploy officers at these establishments. And again, obviously, we're still a proponent of doing that. We think that, number one, from the standpoint of creating a force multiplier for us on Ocean Drive, we think that it will also go ahead and set the tone for what we wanted to do on the previous slide, which is to establish a training regimen for those businesses that actually employ, or actually plan on staying open past midnight and going into the early morning hours. One thing that we would like to be able to see with the clubs and dance halls would be requiring them to have a minimum of 2 off-duty officers when they are obviously open and available for business. Now, that's a minimum. There are some venues that, depending on who the performer is or what's being offered on that particular evening, that may actually require more. We'd like to be able to, once we assign a coordinator to the venue, that we would be able to get more feedback from that coordinator on just how many officers will be necessary in order to be able to staff it for that particular weekend or for that particular night, depending on what's going on. I think it's critical that we do that. And the rationale behind it is this, that if there is something that happens there, it takes away resources from the street, from patrolling, from responding to calls for services, in order to be able to be there to monitor, to make sure that no further incidents occur. If we have an off-duty element that's there, they can deal with whatever issues come up. But probably the most important aspect of that is that they deter the activity before it begins. So, again, we're looking to kind of modify the way that we do that. We're hoping that as we move forward with some of the suggestions, that this is one of the ones that's incorporated into it. And again, I think it gives us a little bit more help, if you will, on the street, and moreover, some more leverage on being able to ensure that this gets done correctly. Next slide. Technology. We continue to go ahead and to expand within the Ocean Drive and the Beach Walk and Day Walk areas with camera installation, and even more importantly, probably replacing the existing cameras with cameras that obviously are more high tech. Most of this is going to be done and obviously under the GEO bond. And when it's completed and once we get everything in place, we hope to have well over 100 cameras throughout Williams Park, Ocean Drive, and Collins Avenue, Washington Avenue. The license plate readers, as you well know, are up and running, and we are adding the LPRs throughout various parts of the city to ensure that anyone that comes in here where there's a problem and they've been identified as being a participant in a crime where the vehicle was utilized, we're getting alerted to. And again, we've seen the end result of that over the last couple of years of capturing people who are wanted in connection with homicides, home invasions, armed robberies, and things of that nature. And we've been able to go ahead and to obviously intercept them, and then through the legal process, being able to determine whether or not the person was actually involved in the particular crime. The infrastructure obviously plays a critical role in these plans, and the department is spearheading a subcommittee which brings together the various city departments to use their collective strengths to efficiently reach the common goal of enhancing public safety. You know, the ultimate goal down the road is that we take these cameras and the LPRs and the red light cameras and everything that we have and incorporate them and the futuristic aspect of having a real-time crime center, you know, that we can monitor 24/7. As of right now, we don't have the infrastructure in place within our building in order to be able to do that. But it is something that we have put, you know, on our list of things to do, you know, within the next 2 years, and obviously predicated on the movement with the projects that we have currently, and we're partnering within the GEO. Next slide.
Excuse me, Chief.
Yes.
Chief, we're at the 15-minute mark. This is a very important topic. Could you try and bring us to a head in just a couple more minutes here? Okay, yeah. And then we'll have time to engage with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the last one is lighting and public safety. I can tell you that we had a tremendous partnership with Roy Cooley and his crew. And we replaced 114 of the old Acorn light fixtures. We've retrofitted them with LEDs. Again, you see the slide where we've replaced high pressure sodium bolts on streets from Ocean Court from 5th Street to Espanola Way. Obviously, our next move is to go to Collins Avenue between 5th Street and Espanola Way. And we think that obviously that will help us out in the crime prevention aspects of that. But overall, you know, the importance of lighting, it's the last couple of sentences. We saw a 7% reduction in Part 1 crimes between 2018 and 2019, given the same time period. And we attribute a lot of that success in order to adequate lighting. We think that the further adding of lighting into the particular area will aid in that even more so. I think that's my presentation.
Wonderful, Chief. Thank you very much for that. Colleagues, we have, you know, a good 25, 30 minutes here for feedback, comments, questions. We all know the hand raising. I won't call you out too much, but let me first see which my colleagues would like to be recognized and give any thoughts on what they've heard. Okay, Commissioner Richardson, you win the I'll
leave it off just because I don't want you to be lonely there.
I was about to take it, and I'm going to take it real soon, but you go for it.
Okay, thanks so much. I like the measures that the chief is talking about: the bike deployment, the park and walk, the expansion of the cameras, and the lighting. And so I'm curious how quickly we can do these things. So I'm obviously very pleased about the increase in officers in the district, but that only started, I guess, 3 days ago. So we've got some time that I think we're gonna need to come back and look at, you know, what's going on. But do we need to wait? I don't know, maybe someone can educate me on which tranche the bond money, where the money for the park is, and also for the district, and whether or not, if we don't have that money right now, if there's some way that we could accelerate the monies for some of these items, especially I think the infrastructure piece or the cameras and the lighting. So can someone speak to that? I don't know if that's going to be the chief or somebody, Eric or somebody, but.
Commissioner, I can tell you that we have the funding for the majority of the cameras in tranche 1 of the GEO bond. Let me look real quickly. There might be a few items that are in tranche 2.
Eric?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was on a call. There's a question about what tranche this is in.
Yeah, we were just wondering if there's any public safety camera money in tranche 2 or if it's all in tranche 1.
It's in tranche 1. We're doing some of that camera work right now.
Okay.
And if I may on that, my understanding of it is the fiber optics, the cable have all been run to the existing structures now, the existing fixtures. And we're currently in the process of obviously replacing the older ones with the newer ones.
Yeah, and that project, by the way, is going to be done in just a couple months. It's almost finished.
The project of replacing the cable, or the project of replacing the cable and also expanding the new and adding the new cameras?
Both.
Both was the answer, Commissioner.
Both.
I didn't hear.
Oh, it was both.
Yes.
Both. So that's going to be done in a couple of months. And then what about, is there any work that needs to be done on the command center for the monitoring of the cameras? Will that be done in a few months as well?
Commissioner, no, that is obviously something that we have set aside for, and there's a lot of moving parts with the GeoBond projects. And we have to have the space available in order to be able to obviously get what we really want, which is a real-time crime center. But that being said, we're currently in the process of going and looking at other departments, real-time crime centers, to include Miami and Miami Gardens, and we have a pretty good blueprint of what we're going to look to do. We have an impromptu one that's not only set up in our training room, but also in our patrol majors conference room. But that's not what I want. That's not the bigger picture one. So right now it's just a temporary deal.
Right.
Commissioner, the Fire Station 1, as you know, is in the current tranche, and that includes a new PSCU, new 911 facility. That then relocation of the 911 facility to Fire Station 1 will then free up the current space. And I believe, Chief, that's where you were going to do this sort of command center. So it's all part of the GOB projects.
Yes, sir. And there's no formal plan right now in terms of that, and we have to put that in writing for the manager, obviously, and then for the commissioners to approve. But right now, that's what we're looking at, and that's more obviously in the future.
Yeah, because that's going to be some years off before all that happens. So, but just so I understand, all of the cameras, so the new wiring and the expansion to include up to 100 cameras, is that all that work will be done within about 2 or 3 months, right?
My understanding
I
is.
can say, I'm sorry, Chief. From what I know on the GeoBond work is going to be done in a few months. I don't know if that includes all the cameras. I also have to say that in the planning stages, we also have Collins and Washington. Mm-hmm. That's also part of tranche 1 of the GeoBond. So there's also going to be cameras installed in Washington and Collins.
So but what I'm trying to do is understand the time frame, so that here we are, September 17th, mm-hmm. October, November, December. So will all of the new cameras and all the new wiring be done by January 1st?
The GeoBond portion of Loomis Park and the Middle Beach Beach Walk, yes.
So, Chief, is that the 100 cameras you're talking about? I think talking about going from about 40 cameras to 100 cameras, right?
Yes, and that's the total number of cameras that we have that are earmarked specifically for the ADCD.
And all those cameras, are they going to be operable by January 1st of next year?
Well, that's the projection.
That's the plan. That's the plan. And then you've got what I will call a temporary command center to monitor right now, but we'll be looking at a larger command center down the road, right?
In the future, as the manager described, it's something that it's once one area is vacated, it opens up the opportunities for us to do that.
Okay. I've got a couple of more chairs. Is it okay if I keep going a few minutes?
Sure, absolutely, Commissioner.
Okay, so that's on the cameras. And then what about on the lighting? The same question. When can we expect the new lights to be installed? Is that part of tranche 1 as well? And when can we expect the new lighting to go in?
Commissioner, that lighting is actually not part of our GeoBond project. That's lighting on Collins, which is a state road. Public Works has engaged with the state and is trying to work through the details of when those lights can be replaced with LED fixtures that would increase the amount of lighting coverage and the quality of the light along the street. We do not have a firm date yet.
Do you have an estimate of what the cost would be for that? Are we talking about a couple of $1 million? Or are we talking about $100,000, if you know?
It would certainly be less than $1 million.
Okay.
I don't know how much
my
less.
experience at the state, then they should be able to do that out of their operating budget. So I will call you separately. So maybe I can help, given my prior history in the state, maybe I can help to accelerate that a little bit. That will come out of 5-year money. Okay, so that's lighting. Now,
if I may, they talked about high pressure sodium light fixtures being changed with LED. So really, for the most part, it's a retrofit. So I think that Eric's assessment is spot on. So it's a retrofit of the existing structures to be able to put more light on the street.
Okay, Eric, I'll call you separately on that so we don't take the time today on that.
Commissioner, if I could,
Yep.
Commissioner, we could also probably use your help on a state issue, because as you know, any lighting we do in the Loomis Park, Ocean Drive area, we have the turtle issue. And so that has been a challenge. In the non-turtle season, we can have the much more sort of security-friendly lighting, but then we get slammed by Fish and Wildlife and whatnot, DEP. And there are some solutions we've put toward them in terms of, shading the nests, relocating nests, just in the Ocean Drive area, just because of all the lighting. So we could use some help with that as well.
I'm happy to help on that. So now, one other thing, and I think that the mayor may have mentioned it in his opening remarks, that I've heard a handful of times, and we hear from one of our famous constituents talk about the cost exceeding the revenue for the district. And, I've always been very troubled by that. I know there was one analysis that had like 20 million and the latest is 6 million. But when I look at that, and I've really never talked about this before, but this is a really good opportunity to talk about it. It seems to me that no one has ever done a true economic analysis of the revenues generated and also the costs. And I'll tell you why. Those two studies that I've seen talk about the revenues generated within the district and also the cost. But what seems to be missing in that analysis is I, as a resident, for example, I live in Flamingo Park. So my tax dollars don't get counted in any of that analysis. But yet, if I go into the district and have lunch or have a drink, the revenue is there, but my tax dollars should be counted as some part of the economic impact. So I'm just wondering have we ever done what I consider to be an economic analysis of the district? And that would include the economic activity that comes into the district, not just that stays in the district. So for example, there are many people that stay in hotels that are on the west side of Washington, or they're north of 15th Street. People that are staying in those hotels may have an occasion to go to a bar or a restaurant in the district. But it seems to me their economic stimulation, because that hotel is outside the district, has never been counted. And I'm just wondering if we've ever done any internal analysis or if we've ever engaged an economist to really look at the economic analysis of the district.
Commissioner, the challenge with that is what's the reason that brought them to the beach, in a sense? I mean, because it's true, if somebody is staying at a hotel outside the MXE, they come into the MXE and they spend money, we capture that. But to count their hotel revenue would then assume that but for the MXE, they wouldn't be here. It's hard to, for example, every year in the surveys, in recent years, the surveys that the Bureau does of visitors, the number one by far attraction of Miami Beach is the beach itself. So it probably is the number one factor when most people come here. So we would have to calculate, and probably it would not be too scientific, allocate to what extent they might not come but for the MXE as opposed to but for the beach or but for. So that's a tough analysis. So the best we can do is capture where it's spent. Yeah,
it's a very tough analysis, but there are competent people that do just these types of analysis, because the truth is that stretch of beach that is related to, that's just east of the MXE, is probably the most heavily populated portion of the beach because they view the district as one. And the reason I bring it up is because I've heard these numbers quoted a handful of times, and I've just remained silent. But I'm not buying the analysis in that I think that there's a lot more going on. You can't just look at the cost of the police within the MXC without looking at the other economic analysis that's just even on the borders of the MXC. And so that's something that if it's never been done before, we might want to look at, because when these numbers get thrown out, I find them not to be credible as a numbers person. And so I thought I would just say that. With that, I would say, Mr. Chair, I'm very excited to see the results of the new police staffing plan. I applaud you, Chief, for taking this action. I think it's absolutely necessary that we have more police presence. And I know when I ran for office locally last year, I talked about getting the cops out of the cars. And so your park and walk, I think, is spot on. We need more police on the street. We need more people to see our police out of the cars. So thank you. I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Richardson. And just before I recognize Commissioner Minor, I see Amy Mayhew is your hand up, I believe. Amy, do you have a quick comment you want to make?
Yeah, just to follow up to Commissioner Richardson's ask about the economic study for the area.
Mm-hmm.
What Lambert did for this current model was look at the revenue that came into the area, whether it came in from off the causeway, internationally, and even locally. It looked at the revenue that did stay in that area, but the revenue, no matter where it came from, built into that space for this study and this analysis. That more in-depth look at if someone is coming to the Fontainebleau, but is spending their dollars in MXC, and did they come here strictly for the MXC? And if the MXC wasn't the MXC, would they have come here? That more in-depth study, we felt we weren't able to get to for the purposes that we needed it for this purpose of the study of what were we looking at when we were looking at our expenditures and how much was that being generated in this area. Now for the grander conversation of what needs to happen economically in the MXC/CD2, as part of Lambert's engagement with Siskovich for that study, it was going to look more in depth. However, it was going to be more difficult and there was going to be some caveats, but that professional in-depth look at the surveying of who's coming here and why are they coming here and what you're asking for is part of that second step of looking at the region.
Yeah, if I could follow up, Mr. Chair, just briefly. So let me give you a couple of examples. I live in Flamingo Park. If I had the time, which I don't, and decided to go to the beach every day in the MXC region, I pay significant property taxes. That is a revenue to the city that goes to pay for police presence. And so if I and all my friends wanted to go to the beach, part of that police protection would be paid for by my tax dollars. But all of that has been ignored in the analysis based on what I have seen. Even people that lived across the street. The other thing that's missing in the analysis is all of the people who work in the MXC and the tax dollars and the taxes that they pay. So I just throw it out to say, because it frustrates me sometimes when I hear these numbers quoted, and I don't think they're good numbers. And at some point, I'd like to see a really comprehensive analysis.
Okay. Excuse me. Sorry, Amy. Thank you. I'm going to play timekeeper here a little because I got a couple of my colleagues. That's a technical discussion. I'll weigh in a little bit too. Commissioner Minor is now recognized.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Chief, for the presentation. You and I talk regularly, so I was immensely excited and commend you for the increase in police patrol and just the sheer numbers that you've been able to increase the police visibility and presence. Police safety is public safety, and police presence is government's paramount responsibility. So I'm excited about the changes you've been able to implement. and among the other issues, lighting, cameras. I did have one question. You and I talk a lot about homelessness, and it's an issue that our residents regularly bring up. And I know you've been working hard with your team and the homeless outreach team, and you've made, in certain areas, you've made great strides. But I thought it'd be helpful if you can address some of the measures you've taken, not only to help the homeless gain shelter, but also helping our quality of life for our residents and tourists, and the measures you've taken and what you plan to do also for the Art Deco district.
Our homeless outreach team, sir, and obviously thank you for recognizing that. They're phenomenal. They truly are. They're tasked specifically with going out into every part of the city, any place at all where we hear that either homeless are congregating or there is a homeless issue there, and they're persistent and consistent with their approach towards trying to get people into shelters, get them into programs, or for that matter, get them placed and off the streets. They're also dealing with those quality of life issues, that dealing with the homeless present to us. And by that, I mean, some of the issues associated with violations of either state statute or city ordinances. So they've been very good with that. We've utilized the Marchman Act, again, which is a chemical dependency issue, in order to be able to go ahead and to get people, for lack of a better term, mandated help, to get them out of a chemical dependency issue while they're on the streets. They've made themselves available not only during their work week, but also during the weekends or when their time off, to be a partner with Mount Sinai as it pertains to the release of people that have been committed or Baker Acted, if you will, to once they get out, they actually go ahead and once again offer them services. So the first goal of that group is humanitarian. They want to get them off the street. They want to get them in some type of shelter. The second one, obviously, is law enforcement. It's a 1A, 1B type of thing. But they have been mobilized. They've been tasked not only with dealing with the homeless, but more recently they've been tasked with dealing with the mask enforcement issues. They have by themselves, and specifically within the MXC and with the ADCD, if you will, they've written close to 800 citations, just collectively amongst themselves. So they've done a phenomenal job. On top of which, dealing with the homeless as well.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, it's as you and I have talked about, it's an issue that literally it's 24/7, and it's if you let up just a little bit, it becomes a problem. So I appreciate your staying on top of it and working with your team, and thanks for all the changes you're making. I'm actually curious, as Commissioner Richardson said, sort of seeing the data now that we have the increased police presence. I think it's going to have a major significant impact.
Mr. Vice Mayor, can I make just a point to Commissioner Richardson?
Sure, Chief.
The cameras in Loomis Park will be completed within 6 to 8 weeks. We're currently working with Public Works on Washington and Collins and anticipate moving forward with that in the very near future.
Thank you for that, Chief. Commissioner Ariola.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to follow up on something Commissioner Richardson said. I agree with him. I think some of these studies that get thrown around are a bit disingenuous when you're trying to just measure, revenues and expenses in a, very sort of limited way. It's inaccurate, and I think anybody who knows much about business or economics can see through it. Just by way of example, if you look at parks, right? Parks don't generate any revenue. They cost a lot of money to run, but what kind of a community city would we have if we didn't have parks? So when we think about the MXC and we throw around that it's a drain, economic drain on our city, because we're just looking at, what it costs to maybe police and run sanitation services, et cetera, through it versus the revenue, I think we aren't really looking at the whole picture. So I just want us to be disciplined about how we think of what the entire area brings to our community. Clearly, it is a troubled area that needs to be repositioned. That's why we're having this meeting and so many meetings about this. But to say that it simply costs money because of the way we're doing the economic analysis is misleading. And I think we're better served in trying to think about it in a bigger picture. I would argue our hotels citywide and even across the bay in the city of Miami would not be as full as they are if we didn't have, Ocean Drive and, the international reputation that it has had in the past. It is troubled right now. The brand needs to be fixed and repositioned. make no mistake about it. But it is an asset, and we just need to work on it.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Ariola. Seeing no hands, I guess I get to engage as well. First, I want to thank the chief, his leadership, and our officers. If you had to think of a profession that is getting scrutiny and is getting, really challenged, boy, I couldn't think of another one. And we are very appreciative of our police force. And I would also say we're counting on you. We really, really are. And I'm encouraged by some of what I heard. We've given you a tough hand. This is a complex city. Nightlife in its own, in my opinion, does bring some safety and security challenges. And I think technology is making this more difficult. Let me be specific. Short-term rentals, both legal and unauthorized, bring people to town. Facebook. Sometimes we hear people want to be seen on Facebook doing things that we wouldn't really want them to do. I want to be clear, everyone is welcome in Miami Beach, but we got to make sure that they are playing by the rules. I've seen the data, and it shows that on the more serious crime, parenthesis for the technical folks, the UCR data we send to the FBI, that we're doing okay, years over. What I think we're dealing with, though, is what one of my colleagues, or maybe it was Mayor Gelber, said, this perception of anything goes, and more what I would call quality of life issues, noise, scooters, littering, maybe public consumption of alcohol. I don't think we can police our way out of it, and I think we need to address the needs, but I don't think we can do it without elevating our policing game in line with some of the things that we heard. When we have groups forming such as Miami Beach Crime and Prevention, So Be Safe, and I see the word enforcement sort of thrown every day, I think it calls to us that we have to do more and better, like some of the things the chief said. So I want to pick up on some of the things I heard, I liked, and underline a few of my colleagues' comments. I'm excited to hear we're going to have more folks out there. I like the bike. Chief, I didn't know you were one of the first on the bikes out there, but I think that's really important. Bike and pedestrian, your walk and ride. And one of the things I'm going to be looking for, because we won't have time to get into all this now, is sort of how much of that is going on. Our community really, really is calling for that. That to me is very, very important. Off-duty. I think that's great. I was a sponsor of TOPS. I like our off-duty program. I know at times staffing those positions can be a challenge. So I want to make sure that when we put a program like that in place, that we have folks there. I completely underline and appreciate the specific details that Commissioner Richardson highlighted. I'm all in on technology. The community agreed to some $70+ million of geo bonds, not just for MBPD, there were other factors, but cameras, LPRs, lighting. And I want to see how quickly we can be using that technology. I understand we may not get all the way to a full crime center, but one of the things that hits me is, we've got a certain area, it's not hundreds of cameras. What does it take to get them, real-time monitoring of someone really focused on that? And Chief, I don't need a response right now. I know it's on the agenda, but how do we jumpstart that? Because it's sort of a contained area. I know we're talking about the police side of it. I would just say that I also think we need to raise the bar for our businesses. The fact that we still have some of the hawking and bait and switch adds to this environment where people think anything goes. I don't know. I think operating on our sidewalks is a privilege, not a right. I don't think everyone is doing what they need to do on that front. And I think we need to elevate our game. I think the bottom line of all of that, and I think this is in line with Commissioner Minor's comment about data, Commissioner Richardson's comment about plan, we'd love to see how this all comes together and how it rolls out. and when we can start to sort of check the box and see some of these things in place. And we're supportive of you and your team, knowing it's a hard hand. I can't resist the opportunity to comment because my two finance colleagues weighed in on revenue and cost. Now, I will not drag us down that rabbit hole because we could go for a while and we're almost up to the time here. What I would say is, just by way of background, a few years ago, the city did an internal effort and basically tried a very complex task of trying to figure out how much revenue comes in from this area and how much cost do we have. And I think the hypothesis at the time was this area was requiring a lot of resources, and that the police actually had its own district for this, and that code and sanitation was putting a lot of time. That was the hypothesis of that work. And that study came out and said, hey, you know, we're in the red some $27 million. A lot of issues and questions came up. And when the mayor appointed his blue ribbon panel, which Commissioner Ariola and I served on, this topic came up again. So we said, well, is it 27 million? How could that be? We know a lot of money is being made in this area. We can't be down 27 million. So we specifically, as a commission, as a body, asked the city to go at it again. Bring in outside help. Do your best. It's a complex problem. As the manager said, it's hard to know, is the folks there at the Fontainebleau, are they there because of Ocean Drive and Collins? Maybe at some point, if it's good news, they're there for that. Frankly, if there's bad news, they may not be there for that. That's a very difficult equation. But the city did, I believe, a professional, reputable next step using an outside agency, Lambert. And what they showed is that we're down several $1 million. I think it's 6 or 7. So what I would say, my own view, I'm a little more supportive of the view, this topic is taking a lot of energy. Look what we're up to today. Look at how much time we as a body and the administration focus on it. And I don't know if the number is 27.7 or somewhere else, but the argument that this area is contributing to our economy, that has not played out in terms of these initial analyses. Is it a contributor? Absolutely. Does it do good for us? Absolutely. But do we put a ton back in? That seems to be what the analysis is saying. So those are my comments. I'm very excited about where we're going. We cannot police our way out of it, but we cannot do it without raising our game. Mayor, I see you're back and your hand is up. So you're going to help us wrap this section up, please.
Yeah. Listen, I think this, a lot of these issues, especially in security and what it generates, and it's easy to do a cost benefit analysis and say, well, how much do we spend and how much do we earn? But I think really the ultimate question is whether this is what we want. It's not just the feeling that there's at times it's out of control or anything goes, or how much money we're getting from it. It's that I think that our community has changed, frankly, in the last 20 years. We've become something different. And this thing has also grown, but it's grown into something that we need to try to get our arms around. And so while I appreciate the financial analysis, I think at the end of the day, first question we have to ask ourselves is, are we happy with this district right now? Whatever that we make from it or whatever we spend on it, is this what we want it to be? And I don't believe that a commissioner could say that this is what we want it to be. So we got to figure out how to reform the business model, keep business, but not this model, because that's really what's going on.
Thank you for those comments, Mayor. So we have concluded the commission discussion on safety and security, at least for today. I know we've not concluded it. Heather Shard's now recognized. 15 minutes, Heather, to tell us about activation, please. Heather? Is Heather with us?
She is, Mr. Chair. Just maybe give her 1 second to get herself unmuted. There she is.
Okay, great. Heather, you're up.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I'm going to share my screen. And is it sharing? Oh, okay, there it is. Great. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to introduce our short-term activation plan for the Art Deco Cultural District in 2021 and beyond. Before I start, I want to show you a very, very brief video of what we were able to accomplish last year.
I'm not seeing the video.
I know, Heather, your PowerPoint is up, but the video is not.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, goodness. Okay. Let me see how I cannot. Well, there we go. Let me see.
Sometimes you have to unshare and then share back on the video.
Okay. Okay. Let me see. I'm sharing which one? Okay. Okay. Well.
So just move, like if you could just move that screen over to her left screen, it should work. Switch again, and then you'll have to. It'll share that one.
Great. It's not sharing that one. I love technology, right? Okay, let's see.
Can you have to move? You have to bring this over to the right one.
It doesn't move.
Excuse me, Heather, do you want us to try and jump to Amy's
Why don't
presentation?
why don't you do that?
Yeah,
I apologize.
No apologies. We're in a Zoom world. No. It's we know how that is. We're in a Zoom world. We're all doing our best. We're with you here. Amy,
Okay.
are you up and ready? And we're also going to hear from Tanya. So I'm going to take who's ever ready here in a second. Amy?
Hey, hi, right here.
You ready? Good. We've got you for 10 minutes here. So you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, I have no slideshow, so it's just me.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody, again. So we're talking about reimagining the area and looking at a different approach to the corridor. It's really important how we look at economic development as part of the process of supporting the businesses that are there in retention, and then part of our attraction efforts as well. And so part of when we look at what we're wanting to be, I like to first identify who we are, what we look like now. And in Ocean Drive, Washington, and Collins area, in that South Beach, MXC, CD2 port districts, we have predominantly hotels, lodging, dining, entertainment establishments, with a sprinkling of retail and some other commercial type establishments like our single use, our little mom and pop liquor stores that are out there. We have a pretty high vacancy rate, and we're looking at how do we fill in the gaps to really accommodate what the new vision is, and how do we attract and retain, how do we help the businesses that are there to do what we need them to do to be what we want the new vision, to support the new vision, and how do we fill in the gaps with what we want, and that's through our attraction efforts. So when we look at our retention, we're looking at really supporting our businesses and identifying what are their operational behaviors, both the good and the bads, and then figuring out for the ones that don't work, why is it not working, and providing the resources and tools to really get them where they need to be. For the ones that really are working, really finding ways to incentivize and reward that behavior and the operational standards that we're hoping everyone else can match up to. Then we're also looking at supporting, doing outreach and advocacy, really proactively being out there, working with the businesses so that they know who we are, we know who they are, and they know who to come to when they need help, so they're not going so far down the rabbit hole of needing assistance that perhaps their operational behaviors are reminiscent of the things that we don't really like to see, like the hawking and the solicitations and some of the things that are creating the ambiance that we know is allowing for the environment that we're trying to discourage. And then really supporting the South Beach Business Improvement District, getting that going. And when we talked about how could we really help get it going, we've talked about what might be the apprehension right now. And we were so close to getting that vote before COVID came along, and then we lost all traction. And now the apprehension comes from they're economically at a loss right now with everything going on with COVID. And how can we really show them that we're in this with them? And having that bid set up along with Washington's bid really helps define that district and supports all the other initiatives that we're really looking to do. And we talked about setting up some type of funding mechanism that could help push the other projects and things that we have identified as administration. And when we looked at how we could set up that pot of money, we thought of two options: a TIF style concept where we would lock up the Miami Beaches portion of the tax revenue that's generated from the properties in that area to help fund these other initiatives, or through some type of resort tax lock of the resort tax that are generated in that area, and creating a pot of money that way so that we could use to fund a lot of the other initiatives when it came to enhanced policing or enhanced sanitation efforts, marketing, banners, things of that nature. And then, so that's our retention section. Sorry, I'm trying to go through the time, make sure I'm good on time. And our business attraction is really where we fill in those gaps of who do we want it to be and what do we want it to look like? And when we look at the market and look at what people are doing when they're coming down here and matching it up to the ambiance that we're trying to build, we were really thinking about experiential type services. So things that we're seeing coming along through the markets of your painting with the twist type things, your augmented retail spaces. We have spaces coming up in our pop-up spaces, like we're with the new pop-up that we have coming in to on Lincoln Road soon, with cars that are going to be there where you can interact with the vehicles and actually get to know the brands and walk away with an experience about that brand and wanting to come back and really re-engage with the ambiance and the environment that we're building for more of this Art Deco, arts and culture environment. And experiential dining, things where you're interacting not just with your food and the people that you're with, it's interacting with with your whole establishment and really creating a place for people to want to come to, not only regionally, but internationally and across the country, really coming into setting a tone for, we're coming to this area for XYZ reason, and really generating that extra revenue for the whole area of Miami Beach, not just that section and portion, as some of you talked about and previously when looking at our cost and benefit analysis. And we are also looking at how do we really support these businesses, not only through creating the environment so it naturally just gets them attracted to the space. We're looking at how can we proactively attract them, and looking at financial monetary incentives, such as rebates on business tax receipts, fee abatements, cash grants, commercial lease subsidies, business relocation loans, and cultural heritage business programs, all of which are detailed in the memo. But because they do have some financial impacts, I probably don't want to go too much into them, but really looking at some of the non-budget impact incentive programs that we could do with expedited licensing and permitting processes, which we're already going through faster, but we could really come up with some more defined processes that help speed that up for people who are coming to this area and are performing to have a business model that we're trying to incentivize. Technical assistance, providing them with the tools to really get up and going, getting the city-sponsored marketing program, really pushing our own resources to help support their local efforts so they're not having to put so much of their dollars into that. And then really what else we could be doing is providing sponsorship and referendum and targeted FAR increases. Our planning department really goes into a lot of their land use incentive programs and a lot of the things that we're getting feedback from stakeholders is there's a lot of things that they really like to see that they could be doing, but there's just some land use prohibitions there. And if we can provide some of those as incentives to really get that development going, it'll change the environment, which helps support the business models that we're trying to bring in, which helps support the change in atmosphere that we're really trying to drive. So it all goes full circle. So I hope I was good on time.
No, you did great, Amy. That was you're right on there. So thank you for that. We're going to hear a couple presentations, and then we'll have some discussion and feedback and questions around that. Heather, if you're ready, we're going to do that. Or Tanya, we could jump to branding. Heather, are you good to go, or should we go to Tanya next?
I can try one more time, and if
Yeah,
not,
sure.
then
Heather, don't worry. PJ's got it. He's going to put it up for you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to share my screen again. And hopefully it will work this time. And there you go. Great. I want to again thank you for your patience in with me with the presentation. The reason why I wanted to show the first slide of the video is to really show you that what we were able to do in 2019. And for 2020 and 2021, we really want to focus on having a short-term plan, but also focusing on a long-term strategy. We think that there are so many things, we are doing so many events, we have so much to offer that we really need to have a substantive plan to move forward. First and foremost, COVID-19 has and will most likely continue to limit the types of programming that we'll have in 2021. Regarding the schedule and the types of activations that we have for 2021, I want you to note that all of these events are wholly contingent on whether it's safe to do, whether it's healthy to do, and prudent to launch or maintain this programming. Accordingly, the timelines that you're going to see in this presentation may change based on a number of factors as we continue to try to put safety first. However, I really think that this is an auspicious time to produce and sponsor more events.
You need to slide that one to that side.
Okay, are you not seeing it? Oh goodness, my team is very, very supportive and trying to help me with this. But what I was saying is that this is a very auspicious time to produce and sponsor really safe programming that will give high return on investment, elevate our reputation, drive our business development, and raise quality programming and drive cultural tourism wherever we want as we recover from COVID-19. This is so bizarre. Okay. Tanya, it's not advancing.
Which one do you have there? Is it the run slide? It's on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. runs. There you go. And that should do it.
Really? Okay. It's not showing the slide. I can keep going. I don't need my slides. I can actually tell you. We believe that having a short-term plan, which is about 12 months for the fiscal year from October 1st, 2020 to September 2021, that we need to have an art and culture strategy that can contribute to the transformation of the Art Deco Cultural District. The short-term plan would include citywide activations and episodic and community engagements. That's why in the video, we divided up amongst what we are doing with our cultural anchors, what we're doing in terms of our community engagements, and then celebrations, which are our special events. We believe that the purpose of doing that is that we can embed in the minds of our residents and our visitors and guests that art and culture are part of the history, the ethos, and the fabric of Miami Beach. And we do that by setting out certain pillars. And the pillars that we are focusing on for long-term are how we can support our current cultural organizations and community, how we can create and enhance venues for artistic and cultural engagements, how do we leverage our public art collection, how do we support quality special events with clear return on investment and that attract regional, national, and international audiences. So how do we support our artists and creative professionals so they can enhance that reputation of Miami Beach? And how do we enhance the vitality of Miami Beach's creative economy, strengthen our culture in Miami Beach's neighborhoods and communities, and encourage civic dialogue, awareness, and participation? We are a city that has world-class art museums, extensive private collections, an evolving gallery scene. Miami Beach offers a wealth of opportunity to view the finest modern and contemporary art in this region, even in the nation, honestly. The good news is that we already understand that it's very important and that we have a wonderful collection and that we're investing and producing an impressive variety of art experiences. There's a lot more that art and culture can do for Miami Beach. However, the question becomes, how does this investment really help address the immediate issues around the Art Deco Cultural District? How does it help address the declining trends that we're viewing and bend them toward growing a city that can attract a younger, knowledge and imagination-based workers and businesses led by creative entrepreneurs? The immediate challenge is trying to really upscale the district that is right now a little dodgy and it doesn't really reflect the character and the architectural heritage, art identity, vision, and contemporary sophistication that we desire for that district. While planning for a long-term solution, we need to look at some of the trends. And some of the trends that we have found is that for Miami Beach, we have an aging population, we have a shrinking population, and we also have an increasing cost of living. So what's happening is the creative population is moving across the bridge. I have a really great slide, and I'm sure that you all are going to get the hard copy, but it's a great slide that shows the hotspots for culture and art. And that is really on the other side of the bay. We have a concentration that's really below 23rd Street to 5th Street, but it is decreasing and we have to really address that. Because of that, we think that we should, for art and culture and our engagements and activations, that we should focus on that area, the 5th Street to 23rd Street as part of the Art Deco Cultural District, because there's connectivity between all of the cultural anchors, programming, the bids, the associations, all in that area. So when residents want to come to that district and visitors want to come to that district, they have different points of connectivity for the area. The way that we frame our plan and the long-term strategy is thinking how we can be innovative, socially cohesive, and think of how we can make our community healthy and have wellness as part of that. We do that by really digging even deeper and thinking, how do we innovate, how do we integrate, and how do we incubate? We innovate by continuing to do activations that utilize our signature festivals and events, and they supplement them with the unexpected, the surprising, the multi-generational, the multi-ethnic events, and expand on our food culture and cuisine for the district. And we start taking art, the art of food, seriously. we're doing that this year by having citywide events. So for 2021, our citywide events that really do that are continuing culture crawl. So, and again, this is all going to be contingent on whether, COVID allows us to do that, or we can do this in a safe manner. But we want to start culture crawl from starting in October to May. We also want to start the Soundscape Cinema series, October to May. And we're going to start doing tours of art in public places, October to May. And then we're going to reintroduce the artisanal and produce market in Loomis Park, hopefully starting in November with a new plan with a new look and feel. We're also going to still do events that we have been doing annually, like Veterans Day, Opera in the Park. And then we're going to do Art Week Miami Beach, have New Year's Eve, and then spring break, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Hall of Fame. We have a number of events that we're going to be doing that are going to be citywide. Now, specifically for the Art Deco Cultural District, we have, Art Deco Weekend is going to be coming. These are events that we sponsor: the Sobe Wine and Food, Miami Beach Pride, Art and the Air and Sea Show, and the South Beach Seafood Festival. And the community front, we've been, as you've seen from last year, we're going to do wellness programs. We've been doing HIIT exercises, as well as integrating yoga and meditation, and still doing those small community activations like the Buena Vista Social Club that we did, or the puppy brunch, or doing the Motown Review, having those small, intimate community activations that actually tell people about our culture and our character and what's in our soul and our pulse. On the integrating posture for our events is collaborating to optimize the impact of our cultural anchors. This is a way that we can create systematic, interconnected, holistic programs that really advance the cultural anchors that we have on Miami Beach. So, of course, we know that we have the 15 cultural anchors that are slowly reopening, but they have been continuing to produce acclaimed quality virtual content. For the 2021 calendar, they're going to be including even more original and welcoming programming that include music, exhibitions. The Bass Museum opened yesterday. We have dance and horticulture with the Botanical Gardens opening, and film and history and literature. We're going to have 36 presenting organizations are going to be doing for 2021, 323 performances. So we're going to have a variety of activations that will be in the district as well as beyond the district. And then the incubation portion of how we want to strategize our plan is where we develop private and public partnerships to create economic opportunity that encourage creative economy business to develop a local arts district. So that is really us working with the BIDS, working with ODA, working with Espanola Way and New World Symphony to make really robust activations. And that will also include the artisanal market that I just mentioned is going to be reopening. An example that we looked at when we were doing the research for this is, I know we can look at Wynwood, and there are a number of examples in our neighborhood, but we also looked in San Francisco. And in San Francisco, the reason why I looked at the Do-Re-Mi district in San Francisco is because, very similar to us, they have an area that they had vacant storefronts. It was a little dodgy as well, and they needed to attract an economy. So, but the difference with them is that they were able to do a strategy and implement it and execute it and have positive return within 3 years. And that is something that I think that we could potentially do for this district, have a strategy, a 3 to 5 year strategy that could really make a difference.
Excuse me, Heather, would you please wrap us up here?
Sure, will do. Some of the other things that I wanted to discuss were Instagrammable moments. And again, I will share this deck with everyone so you can see the visuals, but we have a number of opportunities to do some permanent work and temporary art installations. In the GEO bond for Loomis Park, we have $75,000, and there's a $100,000 rollover from the county to fund a bond project in Loomis Park. So we can utilize that to do a permanent work in Loomis Park, as well as temporary art. And then lastly, I want to bring up Art Week Miami Beach, which is this December. If we're able to do that, we're going to have a number of small activations, but the 3 larger ones are Art Outside, which has just been launched, and it's a walking tour of all of our public art. And then we'll also have 7 Deadly Sins, which is going to be on Lincoln Road. It's an innovative project on Lincoln Road where 7 vacant storefronts will be transformed to premiere 10 to 15-minute plays. And the restaurants and stores can also participate. And then we have Crystalline, which is going to be our public installation in Soundscape Park. It's an evening installation that will be beautiful and it's interactive. And then the third is having an extension of Culture Crawl for having it multiple days over that week. So I thank you for the time, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties, but I do want to leave you with a question that Vice Mayor Samuelin asked us to do. And the question is, do we want to stimulate the private and public investment to attract a creative economy back to Miami Beach? And if so, are we willing to really dig deep and invest in doing something that's not just 1 year after 1 year after 1 year, but to actually sit down, strategize on who do we want to attract, why do we want to attract them, and how we're going to attract them. And that's a long-term plan. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Heather. So next up is Tanya Daniels. She's got 15 minutes to give us a branding presentation, and then colleagues will bring it back to the virtual dais, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and comments on the 3. Tanya, please.
Sure. Okay. Are you seeing PJ and my setup correctly?
Yes, looks good.
All right. So rebranding Miami Beach. So let's talk a little bit why cities rebrand. So there's a lot of different reasons why a city would want to rebrand, but here's just a few that had come to mind in discussions that we've had recently. You want to differentiate yourself from somewhere else. You need to revive an existing image that is outdated. You want to, re-examine a pre-existing negative idea of an area that has maybe grown, or highlight some significant positive changes that are happening to an area or areas or the city as a whole, which is obviously something that we're talking about here today. So why are we doing this now? Why are we thinking about something like this now? Obviously with the Art Deco Cultural District and everything that we're looking at, but we're also looking at a lot of other things that are happening right now. COVID-19 pandemic has caused kind of a worldwide pause, an opportunity for everybody to take a step back and really look at what's going on. Tourism, with everything that's going on with COVID, worldwide changes in tourism and what people are expecting when they come and visit another city or travel at all. As I said, the MXC, the Art Deco Cultural District, we all know that in North Beach, there's a lot of, new developments, the North Beach Master Plan. We have increase in arts and culture. Everything that you've heard about in the presentations today is kind of driving conversations about Miami Beach and its brand, and what is the brand and how do we move forward with that? So that's a good question. What is our brand? So our brand identity currently has been built and rebuilt by public perception over many years. I don't think that there's any argument here that Miami Beach has never had its own brand that it has created, that we have promoted, that we have lived and breathed. But there are certain things that people think of right now when they think of Miami Beach. Obviously, our beaches. We're beginning to be known as a bit of an anything goes party atmosphere. Some would argue that is different whether you're talking locally or nationally as to how people are perceiving that. But we're also a prime event destination. Everything that Heather just said in her presentation, really there's a lot of stuff that goes on here. And as you can see, all of these things can bring, some negative press and or we can also look at some positive press. We have a lot of things that are evolving in our city right now. We really need to take a step back and refresh and coordinate our brand with all of these great things that are starting to emerge and cultivate, and decide, really what we want to be perceived at for decades to come. So who's doing our messaging right now, and what is our brand messages that are being put out there? So for tourism, there's a lot of different messages that are being put out there. We're lucky that we have so many people that are promoting the city and promoting the different things to do here. There's the GMCBB, obviously, with its overall message for all of Miami as a whole, found in Miami and Miami Shines. Our VCA puts out messaging. For instance, during Zika, they had their Worry Free campaign to try to get people to come here. We have Lincoln Road, Espanola Way, Ocean Drive, all of these great places are putting out messaging. The problem is it's all different messaging, and there's not one cohesive tourism message for Miami Beach. There's a Miami message that the GMCBB puts out, absolutely, but there's not been a Miami Beach brand message that has been consistently put out. So in addition to all of that, there's also all of the messaging that our department does, the municipal messaging. Plus we have, high impact weekend messaging that we put out, all of the arts and culture and the event stuff that, Heather really talked about. We have short-term rentals, municipal issues that we deal with. Our police department and a campaign we just started for them, U plus me equals MBPD. Plus we have a lot of environmental things that are going on. So long story short, there's really a lot of different messages that are being shared and put out. But again, not one cohesive message for Miami Beach as a brand. So what do we do? How do we move forward from there? Instead of having multiple campaigns, we think that there's a possibility of looking at kind of coordinating all of these messages under one top level umbrella, creating a brand that really has a deep understanding of the city's goals, of who we are, and of what we want to promote. Everything from governance to tourism, economic development, sustainability, one overarching brand that really says who we are, what we have to offer, and what people are going to get when they come here. Something that would include, a citywide tagline and a unique positioning statement that provides a platform that all of our partners can truly stand on proudly with us. So what is that task? As I just said, a citywide regeneration, coming up with a refresh brand image to really make sure that we endure things like COVID-19 and the changes in our brand as we go through. Something with a solid foundation of all of the amazing attributes that Miami Beach has to offer. I do want to stress, though, that that has to be done as a greater process. A brand is not just a tagline, it's not a pretty picture, and it's not a promotional video. Whatever you're offering and whatever you're saying your brand is has to truly be what the person gets when they come to the city. And I think that that's what we're all talking about here today. So the ultimate goal, the ultimate task is to increase our pride amongst our residents, attract more tourists, drive commerce, and increase economic growth. So how do we think that we should do this? We think that creating a marketing task force is really a smart step in moving forward with this. We don't think that this should be just a government city initiative. We really think that we need to embrace this with all of our partners, all of these people that are helping us do the messaging, so that everybody is truly part of the fabric, part of this message going forward. People from our arts and culture community, our tourism and hospitality, the entertainment, the events that come here, our real estate and commercial and business, plus all of the city representatives from the various departments that are really, integral into making this a success. And what is that task force goals? Create the procurement tools to make this happen, evaluate the bidders, and help us choose the agency that's going to move us forward and help us with this process. What would the agency objectives be? So a full brand analysis, not just coming up with that pretty picture and the video that I was saying. They really need to do some perception research. What do people think of Miami Beach right now? What do people think of when you say Miami Beach to them? Do they need to perform a competitive analysis of other cities around the area? Look at focus groups, and also evaluate the current brand and the messages that are out there now. Are they helping or hurting our messaging going forward? And then take that and really create that brand with us based on everything that we're saying. So, some examples here, FedEx is synonymous with overnight delivery, but that wasn't because they just had a marketing campaign that said, we're overnight. They truly deliver on overnight delivery. Tesla, electric cars, you're getting what they say that they're delivering. And obviously Apple with electronics. But also looking at all of our sub brands and making sure that whatever this brand is that we come up with, whoever we want to be as Miami Beach and portray ourselves as going forward, making sure that everything falls in line with that. So once all of that is finished, we would ask them to really come up with that verbal and visual identity to push and move Miami Beach forward, to create the taglines, the tone, the key messages to all the target groups and how to message them, the visual identity as well, the logos, the color palette, our social media messaging, how we represent ourselves in social media, how we can work with our partners and create packages that they can also utilize in their businesses, in their hotels, and their messaging that really complements and works with the message that is created for the brand of Miami Beach. So in coming up with all of this, this wasn't done in a vacuum. I really listened a lot. I've attended a couple of the Chamber of Commerce meetings that they've had recently about branding. I've talked with some representatives in the area, but I also wanted to reach out to an agency that I have high respect for, who is Ogilvy. If you have any knowledge of branding agencies or ad agencies, you know Ogilvy is one of the top in the world. And I was lucky to get somebody in their Miami office that was very generous with his time. And we talked a lot about different things. And I asked him, you know, when you're doing this, do you think that it should be one overall umbrella, or should Miami Beach have a bunch of different brands? And he talked through some things that they have done before. He mentioned some things that they did with Mexico. And one question that they ask is, are all brands working towards the same goal? Are the hotel brands working towards the same goal? The city working towards the same goal? And one could argue that we are. So he recommended everything that I said in the presentation, a full brand analysis, the negatives and the positives to how we want to portray ourselves. So he said, you know, if you're going to portray yourselves as a family-friendly city, make sure that when people come here, they're getting family-friendly offerings to do here with their family. Don't just say you're family-friendly, prove you're family-friendly. And creation of the branding and the marketing tools, like I said, but as well as getting the guidelines for implementation and how to carry that through and really be successful. Some of the scarier things we talked about was the estimated cost. What does something like this potentially cost? And it's not a small task, obviously. And obviously I was talking to Ogilvy, again, one of the big boys, but the estimate that they gave me was between 300 and 500,000. And the timeline for completing something like this, he said a minimum of 10 to 12 months, and that is after the procurement process is finalized. So that doesn't include coming up and choosing the agency. That is once the agency hits the ground running, give them at least 10 to 12 months to really take this as a marathon and not a sprint. You don't want them to rush through this. So how would we pay for something like that? There's obviously, I'm sure that our CFO has a lot more opinions than I'm going to offer here, but I kind of thought, you know, we have our resort tax, which has been hit, obviously, but there's the promotion side of that. Do our partners want to join us in this and help the funding of this? The VCA, the GMCBB, and the bids that are out there, do they want to take part in this? All questions and ideas just to throw out there. And what are the next steps for something like this? Obviously, identify the funding, create the task force, and begin the process. That's it. Chair, I spoke fast. I was trying to get through it for you.
That's wonderful, Tanya. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our presenters. So let's bring it to the virtual dais here. We have the next period of time here, half hour, for us to ask questions or comments on activation, target industries and incentives, and branding. So let's see who my first person with their hand up is going to be. I'm going to look at my chart here. Let's see. Colleagues, who wants to be first? Okay, Commissioner Ariola. That was very interesting how that Commissioner Ariola came and went, and then Commissioner Richardson.
No, I'm here. I mean,
you're here. You go first, then, and Commissioner Richardson is next.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just riff. I mean, you know, our brand is impaired. There's no doubt about it. COVID didn't help. You know, we've spent the last 6 months, you know, crapping all over ourselves. So we need help really quickly. I would move to engage, you know, the very best branding firm we can find, and, you know, $500,000, $750,000. I mean, it's peanuts compared to the return we get if we do this right. We've got 40 billion in real estate and hopefully growing, not shrinking. And a huge budget, a huge economic engine here. If we don't get this thing restarted, we're going to be in hard times for the next decade plus and trying to dig ourselves out of a hole. I think this is as urgent as any COVID measure we've taken. We have to invest in our brand ASAP, get the very best brands, business minds and brand leaders that we can. I think we need to do it, in the next 30 days and really start a turnaround plan immediately. So I like that we're thinking this way, but we got to take action. We can't just do the normal government thing, which is study it, and deliberate. This is as urgent as anything that we've faced in my lifetime here. So we need to get ourselves out of this hole ASAP, and we should just hire the very best we can, engage the best business minds that we can. We've got some great talent in Miami Beach, some great CEOs and retired CEOs who can help us do this. But I would urge the mayor and all of us to do this quickly.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Arriola. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. So let's talk about the branding first. So I think you did a great job of identifying the issues, Tanya. And I think the estimate you got, quite frankly, might be even a little low. It sounds like a lot of money, but it'll be that if we were to get that kind of firm. So I'll back up to 3, 4, 5 years ago when I was in Tallahassee and was visited, then the city would come up and talk to me, and also the GMCVB. And I would look at their materials, and their tag has been for quite a while, Greater Miami and the Beaches. And, I've been troubled by that tagline for a long time, but it really wasn't my business until last November when I was elected locally, and now it's my business. I don't think that it has served Miami Beach very well. In fact, I have jokingly, not so jokingly, said to my friends over there, I have a new slogan. It's called Miami Beach in the Mainland. And let's spend all of the money of the GMCVB and let's advertise Miami Beach in the mainland. But this community, Miami Beach, has been spending a lot of money to promote the brand of Miami, Greater Miami and the Beaches. I don't see where we get much benefit from that tagline. It seems like most of the benefit goes to my friends across the water, and I have great respect for them, but I don't want to spend my tax dollars to build their brand. I want to build our brand here. And so the conversation, we all know that we need it. I know that we've been giving a lot of money to the GMCVB, and I already said to John some months back when we were working on the budget for this particular cycle, that we should have a conversation about how we want to spend that money going forward. And I know it takes time to reevaluate that. But we need serious work on our brand, our tagline, our branding. And Tanya, I think you did a great job of identifying the work ahead of us. Obviously, we've identified the work. Now we just have to go and do it. I am all in favor of spending the money to get the best talent that we can get to help us in this regard. But it's going to have to be something that's going to build the brand of Miami Beach and not our surrounding communities. So one idea.
Look at your text. I need help.
Hey, Dan, go on mute. So one idea in terms of money is, we're going to get an infusion, hopefully from the claim that we put in on the COVID. And so that's hopefully will be coming in. So anyway, that's on the branding. And I'm very supportive of spending the money to get this right. On the other areas, the economic and the activation, the presentations were very helpful from a micro level, but I would I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the macro on those issues. And so I'll be following up with Amy and Heather to have another conversation because I think that the presentation was good at the micro level, but I think what we're talking about today is at a very macro level. And I think that we need to have that conversation before we can all that stuff at the micro level fits into the macro, but I think we really need to have a conversation about activation, economic development at the macro level. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. It was a tie, but I think Commissioner Minor got there before the mayor. So if that's okay, Mayor, Commissioner Minor next, and you're up after that.
I'm willing to defer.
It was a tie. He's okay. Commissioner Minor, you go.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I'll start off by saying when I initially saw the mayor's initiatives in this proposal, I was so thrilled because I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I think we're going to look back at a day like today, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and it's going to be an absolute game changer. So I actually agreed to co-sponsor the mayor's initiatives. And it's really an opportunity because it's a unique moment in time where our residents, the businesses, most of the businesses, stakeholders, they're demanding change, and we have an opportunity to give it to them. So, and in addition to the initiatives, I thought this would be a good time because I actually have had an idea for quite some time that, frankly, before I even contemplated running for public office, about how to activate the South Beach, Loomis Park, Ocean Drive, the beach area with really 365-day-a-year family activation. And I thought this would be the perfect time when I read the mayor's proposals and when this workshop was set up. So I put an item on the commission agenda. It's actually a referral to our neighborhoods committee discussing some ideas for the activation, which I'll get to in a moment. And I did what I thought was just a simple Facebook post that basically some of my ideas, and it went viral. That's the only way I could say it. I had tremendous outreach from friends, from people I never spoke with. The Miami Herald reached out to me. WIUD 610 AM radio did an interview that they're airing on this. And a cultural museum actually reached out to me as well, looking to relocate to South Beach, and said they saw my post and they're looking for new opportunities for family-friendly places for their museum. So, and it's obviously Ocean Drive always gets a lot of attention, but I think we're capturing the attention of people, not just because it's Ocean Drive, but what potentially we can offer for them. And I think Tanya said it well when she talked about this premier marketing firm said we can't just say we're family friendly. We actually have to be family friendly to capture the tourists and the residents. And I put out these ideas on Facebook and what have you because I wanted to get resident input. And these ideas, although I've put in a lot of work, and I'll present in more detail at the neighborhoods committee, and hopefully also the commission, I'm throwing these ideas out because I want to have resident input, what people want. I want commission input to hear what my colleagues think about this. And I've spoken with Jimmy, with Eric Carpenter, and they're very supportive. I'll let them speak for themselves, but in my conversations, very supportive. So just give a couple of quick highlights because I know we're short on time, so I'll just take another minute or two. But I mentioned a Ferris wheel, a carousel, concerts, cultural events, art exhibits, good food, certainly positive activations that would transform the area, but literally every day, 365 days a year. And one of the things that struck me, and like I said, I've had these ideas before for a while, before I even ran for office, is so many of our residents never ever go down to Ocean Drive, to Loomis Park. You know, sometimes we obviously, as commissioners, we deal with people who know our city well, who are very active residents, which is great. I think it's one of the beauties of our city, which makes being commissioner actually such a gratifying position. Our residents are fantastic, but there are so many residents who don't even know what Loomis Park is. It's shocking. I've done sort of informal polls just asking people. They've heard of it. They don't even know what it is or where it is. And even people who've heard of it who don't even know, have never been there. So we have an opportunity, I think, not only for a tourist standpoint, but also to make it exciting for our residents. And I've looked at different locations around the world, whether it be Geneva and Singapore, London, Santa Monica, Seattle, all have very similar types of visions, and Ferris wheel being one of them. But again, I'm not wedded to the idea. I throw it out there. And I'll give you an example with London. They put in their Ferris wheel as a pilot program in 1999. It was only supposed to be for a couple of years, and they've kept it. It's been one of their major attractions. And I just use that as an example. And so maybe we could do something like that. We could try different pilot programs, and they don't have if they work, great. If not, we move on to other ideas as well. So I think, as Heather mentioned, the Instagram moments, we just want to have that activation from not only from an Art Deco and cultural perspective, but also from a perspective where we can bring in family-friendly activations and really change the image from the entertainment district to the Art Deco district. And I think when we can do that in combination, we help everyone. We help our residents, we bring in tourism, we'll help our businesses. It will deter crime because it'll be heavily trafficked. And these can be done in a very, very high-end way. And I think fits in with the mayor's vision and initiatives.
Thank you for those comments.
Commissioner, if I can just add, just to substantiate on the basis of data, and I know Tanya or Amy Knowles may have the data. We do our every 2 year surveys of residents and businesses. And interestingly, one of the questions we ask, I think at least the most recent survey, was to name the top 4 or 5 places you go to frequently on Miami Beach among residents. And interestingly, the MXE was not among the top for our residents. Lincoln Road was very high, but Ocean Drive and other areas. So I think that sort of substantiates, Commissioner Minor, some of what you're saying there.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Manager. Mayor Gelber. Mayor?
Is that what it's like? Is that what it's like when you guys do it?
I don't know. You are muted a little, but kick back to you.
Lord. It's good to hear all these presentations about things that are happening. I think we have to leave with an action plan, and some of the items coming up, you're going to see some very specific things to do. But on the branding and things like that, I have reached out to the Visitors Convention Bureau already, the GMCVB, because they have obviously, as Commissioner Richardson pointed out, a pretty big contract, raised some of the same issues that David referenced. And so one of the things that is a real possibility, and we haven't worked it out yet, is to ask them. They have a substantial marketing budget, and they actually, the companies they use are real serious. I think VMLY&R is one of their main agencies, which is a pretty major company of advertising, branding, and public PR. But they already have money that a lot of it comes from obviously our city. And I think, and my pitch to them was that while they can do a broad countywide effort or regional effort, there ought to be something that is just for us, in the same way that there are lots of industries that project themselves out in different ways depending upon the different customers they're looking for. We should be able to do that also, and it might make sense. And they didn't have a initial response to it, which would make me think they're not considering it. So I think, Jimmy, we can probably continue that discussion with them to see if, in the funds they already have, which are a pretty amazing amount of funds, that whether we could take some of that, and instead of just saying, look, everybody benefits in the county when people come to the county, because most people visitors will stay at our hotels and will visit us. We know that. So there is a commonality to the effort, but there's no reason why we couldn't project out who we are, because that's also going to help the county. It's just a different way of appealing to people, and at the same time defining who we are, because one of the problems is obviously is other people are defining us. I see those promoted parties and where people are saying come here and go wild. I just sort of think that's how we're being promoted, as a place to go wild at, and we should be doing the promotion, and we should be defining who we are, because that's going to signal to the world who ought to be coming here and what they can get when they come here, and what can and why they would want to be here. So there is a fund of money that I'm not going to commit to it because I haven't finished our discussions with them, but I think the GMCVB did not blanch when I talked about it. They do have some top Madison Avenue type firms already, and the details. But that's something we should not only pursue, but would allow us to do exactly what a lot of us want to do pretty quickly.
Thank you for those comments, Mayor. Let me say a few things. First, I want to react. I very much appreciate and look forward to continuing the dialogue on activating Loomis Park that Commissioner Minor shared. I think that we have an underutilized asset. I like that we're listening to our residents. I think we always are on our best game when we do that and take that as input. I like the idea of attracting residents as well. The exact specifics of how, I know those are just thought starters. So, that's obviously for another day. And I don't know if my colleague literally thinks about 365 or if he's talking weekends and primary events. That's for another day as well. What would really be helpful, I think, is to look at some analogies. And you mentioned, Commissioner Minor, London. I think of my days in New York City, I think of Bryant Park and outdoor cafes and people huddling around, even a chess game or two, and some art and nature. I mean, just, it'd be nice to have a picture or two of some analogies. I always think that's helpful. So I look forward to carrying on that discussion. I think the presentations we got were helpful. To the first presentation about incentives or recruitment, that's going to be a tough one. I think it's easier to say certain things we want to change rather than saying what we want and how to bring it. So that clearly is going to require some discussion. And as part of that, we need to be thoughtful about transitions. As we say things we don't want, we certainly don't want empty storefronts or empty locations. To Heather's specific question, do we want to attract, are we willing to invest, for the creative economy? I think broadly my answer is yes. The devil's, of course, in the details. And I do think we need a multi-year view. Let me sort of close my comments on the branding. I thought that was a very interesting perspective. Few reactions. The first is we probably need to get our heads around the specific focus. I absolutely get a branding approach. It's a familiar terrain for me of what do we look like? What do we want to be? And that's great. That has a role. We're also in the midst of what I think one of my colleagues, Commissioner Ariola, mentioned about a relaunch. So that's sort of a different angle. It's like Miami Beach is open again and come on back. That's like a different angle. And then there's a third angle to sort of sort through of the ADC, the arts ADCD. I think I got my D's and C's right. ADCD, which is sort of like, also a relaunch. So I don't think we're solving that today, but I could see a focus on overall city macro branding. I could also see a bit of focus on those other elements. Other specifics to that. I believe the linkage to regional efforts is critical. The branding, and Commissioner Richardson made some interesting comments about, the beach and the mainland, or Miami and the greater beach. How does that work? I think linkages to other folks doing things, the GMCVB, the VCA, I think is extremely important. And one other thing I would really say, because these are big, complex things, I really would want to think whatever we did had two critical elements. One, case studies and analogies of folks in similar situations. So we sort of had a picture of what this looks like, because sometimes pictures and examples from others can bring things to life so we know we're on the right track. But two, quick fixes, quick short-term action items. How do we clean up some of the branding we have? How do we quickly marshal resources? I think these things can go on for a while. We certainly don't want to boil the ocean, if I may, and it needs to have a long-term view. I get that's where we're going. But what are the short-term actions? And I think any outside activity, I would want to highlight that as an important deliverable. So those are my comments at this point. Look forward to continuing the discussion. Commissioner Ariola's hand is up. Commissioner?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend my colleague, Commissioner Minor, for going out on a limb, coming up with something creative, out of the box, something that's sure to, grab attention and controversy and probably subject him to, all kinds of, not pleasant things sometimes. Being someone who's used to being in that seat, welcome to the team. I commend you and I like the direction. You have my support, encouragement. Don't give up on it. I think family-friendly programming is part of the solution, part of our way out of this. I recall Times Square in New York. Those of us who are old enough to remember what it was like in the 70s and 80s, it was literally the cesspool of Manhattan. It seemed irredeemable, full of every vice and low life you can imagine. And in very short order, they were able to get their way out of it. They shut down the businesses that were contributing, the overwhelming police force to get rid of the bad actors. And then, and I think we're going to talk about this, they brought in investment. And I think Disney was the first big investor to, put a stake in the ground there when they opened The Lion King right off of Times Square. And that's part of what I think we should also be exploring in terms of economic development. We need to be trying to bring a real major player, real major actor to invest in the area, to say, look, we believe in Miami Beach and its future and this part of town, and reposition, just like the Faena district did further north. We need to try to find that catalytic investment to help us prove what we're trying to accomplish here.
Great. Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Arriola. And magic has hit us. The agenda said around 3:15, Jose Gonzalez was going to talk to us about transportation and transit. Seeing no hands, we're going to transition right to that. Jose, you're up. You have 15 minutes, please.
Can you see and hear me now?
Yes.
Both. Okay, good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As part of our piece of reimagining the Art Deco Cultural District, my team focused on how people will travel to and within the district and how these movements can interface in the best way possible to create synergies, to activate the area in a positive way and promote economic development, while maintaining the essential functions of the existing businesses as well as emergency vehicle access, which is very important. In our presentation, we wanted to encapsulate many hours of analysis and research focusing on reimagining a cohesive network of streets and connections to neighborhoods while respecting the character of each individual street and being mindful of the adopted mobility plans for each corridor. As you're aware, in response to the pandemic, we've worked closely with the community to deploy temporary projects such as the Washington Avenue protected bike lanes and pedestrianizing Ocean Drive as a catalyst for economic recovery. Our presentation uses both historical data as well as current conditions to generate some short-term and long-term mobility recommendations for the district. As we were analyzing the district, we established some core goals based on policies and recommendations in our transportation master plan and bicycle pedestrian master plan, which were adopted by our city commission in 2016. Seeing this through the lens of our adopted master plans ensures that our goals for the district align with the city commission's adopted modal prioritization of pedestrians first, bicycles and transit second, and private vehicles last. So in our presentation, you'll see concepts that in essence, improve walkability, create gathering places, and build connectivity to some of our other iconic destinations, such as Española Way and Lincoln Road Mall. And then of course, bicycle and transit connectivity is essential to ultimately develop a cohesive multimodal mobility network that supports economic development. And then at the end of our presentation, you'll see a video animation that illustrates the concepts that I'm referring to and what our long-term multimodal vision for the district could potentially look like. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Assistant Director Josiel Ferrer Diaz to make a brief presentation on our mobility plan for the district.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Jose. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Just moving right along, as our director mentioned, one of our starting points was to take a look at the existing master plans, the transportation master plan and the bicycle pedestrian master plan, to determine how some of these modes and corridors were prioritized in terms of modes. So Washington Avenue was prioritized as a transit corridor, while Collins Avenue was prioritized as a bike ped corridor, and Ocean Drive as a pedestrian priority corridor. It is worth highlighting as well that Washington Avenue, it's part of the county's SMART plan and is identified in that plan as a rapid transit corridor. So once we established the priorities for, of the master plan for this district, it was important to take a look at the network and establish the safe multimodal links between the adjacent neighborhood and the district. We accomplished this by putting together a network of greenways or boulevards to connect the neighborhood to the district, which would increase the economic resilience of the district as well. In addition to that, we looked at the north-south avenues in the district in order to develop some high-level goals, which were prioritizing multimodal connections on Washington Avenue, improving delivery and passenger drop-off on Collins Avenue, and establishing a pedestrian and commercial boulevard on Ocean Drive by closing it to vehicular traffic. One of the more telling slides that we have is this one on Ocean Drive, and this is some of the what aided us in the high-level decisions that we had to make, particularly for the north-south avenues. And in this slide, what you can see is a comparison on how the road is designed versus how it's used. So on Ocean Drive, and this is one of the examples, and we did this for every road that we analyzed. On Ocean Drive, what you can clearly see here is that the way that the road is designed is 58% of the space in the right-of-way is dedicated towards autos, so towards cars or vehicles. While in fact, the way that the road is used, 62% of all people that traverse this road are actually pedestrians. So the road design does not match the road use, and that is where we need to find a way to have those two marry. One of the important modes that we took a look at was transit. As you know, Washington Avenue is the main transit corridor within the district. However, given the recent temporary project, we have transit temporarily relocated to Collins Avenue. As you can see in the pictures here in the slide, we have some challenges with Collins Avenue being a transit corridor, given that it has limited right-of-way. As you can see in this picture, with some of the deliveries occurring from the center lane, and you have transit operating in the north-south direction, there's very little space for transit to operate safely. This could, generate some safety concerns in the future. In addition to that, with the limited sidewalk space and on-street parking, Collins Avenue also doesn't have sufficient room for transit amenities such as shelters or bus space. So it's important that we took a look at this corridor to see if it could support transit on a long term, and we found that it was not a feasible corridor to support transit. So with that, we put forth some short-term and long-term recommendations for each of the corridors. And we wanted to do that because we wanted to effectuate immediate change in some of these corridors, while some of the other projects may were a little bit longer term. So based on all the data from the districts and putting together these short term, we have the recommendations for Washington Avenue. And in the short term, we recommend bringing transit back immediately and exploring the implementation of transit platforms, which you can see one here in the picture, and exploring bringing the transit back with these transit platforms. And what that would allow us to do is continue with the bicycle lane as you have it now under the temporary condition. We would also create bus bays, and that would have very minimal effect on the existing restaurant extensions, and even to the same extent to the parking. In the long term, we propose redesigning the corridor by reducing the median width and creating a true multimodal corridor with transit lanes, on-street parking, bicycle lanes, as well as keeping the opportunity open for expanding the restaurants into parklets. For Ocean Drive, in the short term, we recommend actually not reopening the road to vehicular traffic and keeping the restaurant expansions and the pedestrian boulevard atmosphere. We felt that has been a very positive, that has brought very positive environment to the area, and we have received very good very good feedback from the community on that. In the long term, we recommend redesigning the street to a single elevation and expand the sidewalk cafe zones, and also, making sure that the road is accessible to emergency vehicles. In looking at the city's future plans, we know and understand that the GeoBond program offers a great opportunity to implement these changes, and advancing the funds for Ocean Drive and Washington Avenue to Tranche 2 will allow the city to expedite this implementation. For Collins Avenue, in the short term, we recommend implementing freight loading zones on Collins Avenue, and implementing as well a curb management program, which to our understanding, the parking department is working on RFP services for that. And in the long term, as the city advances perhaps construction of garages in the area, and as we take a look at the trends for parking, we can take a look at, given the high pedestrian demand and even some bicycle demand in this corridor, we can take a look at repurposing some of this on-street parking and looking into expanding sidewalks, adding some sidewalk amenities, and perhaps even bringing in bike lanes. So for the east-west streets, in the short term, we recommend the implementation of green background sharrows, which you can see a picture here on the slide from Meridian Avenue. Those have been very well received in that project, and we think that that's going to help a lot in the east-west connection for all modes of transportation. In the long term, and similar to the recommendation on Collins Avenue, in the long term, as if the city can move forward with some off-street parking throughout the district, we can take a look at repurposing some of this on-street parking and creating protected bike lanes in order to make those connections, which we think is going to enhance the safety and bring more casual riders into the district as well. With the closure of Ocean Drive, one of the items that we had to look at closely and in close coordination with the parking department was the relocation of valet parking. So in close coordination with the parking department, we recommended moving valet parking to the 100 blocks, and actually to all 100 blocks between 7th Street and 11th Street, and then every other 100 block north of 11th Street. So in the short term, we recommend the relocation of the existing vehicle barriers to create some space east of Ocean Court, which is the alley just west of Ocean Drive, and designating that area for valet parking only. And that would allow the valet parking to operate safely and more expeditiously. In the long term, as Ocean Drive, the plans for Ocean Drive, are completed and Ocean Drive is raised to a single level, we can take a look at introducing some cul-de-sacs, as you can see here in this diagram. You can implement some cul-de-sacs or a similar configuration to allow the valet parking to turn around with more ease. One of the items that was quite challenging to take a look at was delivery operations. With the closure of Ocean Drive and the limited space throughout the district, our team did a real deep dive with the help of the parking department into the current delivery operations and developed a plan focused on the context and the available right-of-way. So in summary, the idea is to have the smaller vehicles, the smaller two-axle vehicles in the 100 blocks just west of Ocean Court, so between Collins Avenue and Ocean Court. And then having box trucks, smaller box trucks, two-axle vehicles on Collins Avenue, on the freight loading zones created there. And then having the larger vehicles, such as the ones you see in the picture, the larger 18-wheelers or the Coca-Cola trucks or trucks that are 3 axles, having them move to the 200 blocks where they can easily make the right turns or the left turns and don't have to, do any maneuvers or backup maneuvers, and on Washington Avenue as well. The other idea is to also limit the hours of delivery from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then opening up that parking for other purposes. So for instance, in the 100 blocks, one of the ideas that we had with some of this loss in parking that we have been experiencing, or that we will experience as a result of some of these closures, the 100 blocks after 11 a.m., we were thinking of, and our recommendation is to create passenger drop-off zones that's going to help with the rideshare, because we see that an uptick on rideshare will happen as a result of this. And with that, we're going to move forward to the video. And before we start the video, this is an effort that when we reimagined the corridor, we set out to create a vision for this district, which was multimodal. And we try to transmit this vision to you, and we created this video animation showing the results of future recommendations for Washington Avenue, the side streets. This video starts out at 15 feet up in the air, and it's essentially a walking pace through or a flyover through 10th Street. And you'll see some pauses in each of the north-south avenues, and I'll take the time to describe everything that's happening as you see it. So here we're approaching Washington Avenue. And as you can see in this video, we're promoting here narrowing the median and having actually left side bike lanes. And this is not a new concept. It's a concept that has been implemented in various areas, but it reduces conflict. We're also proposing a transit lane. And if you can see up a little bit in the distance over there, you also have a parklet. We'll also have space for on-street parking as well to alternate with those parklets. Here we're going to take a look at the south approach. And as you can see, we have the same configuration. You can see the parklet, you can see the left turn, the left side bike lane, which is going to, at the left turn lanes, become shared with the left turn lane, which is the common practice for this. But it has shown great results in other areas. There are other municipalities that have implemented this, such as San Francisco, Boston, and as close as Naples have implemented this left turn left side bicycle lanes. So as we now fly over 10th Street, you can see here that in the 200 block, you have the delivery zones there. We wanted to show the flexibility of the space. So on the north side, you have cars, but the intent is this area will be all deliveries between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. and then it'll be open for parking. So you see here that this is the larger style of vehicle. The other thing to highlight here is the green sharrows that are going to make the bicycle connection in the short term to the district, and it's going to help make that connection and make some of these side streets more multimodal. On Collins Avenue, there's not much of a pause here. We didn't pause on Collins Avenue because there's no changes in configuration, but rather just operation of the corridor and creating some of the freight loading zones. As we approach the 100 blocks, as you can see, there's also flexibility in this corridor and having the smaller vehicle, which would incentivize perhaps some of these purveyors to use smaller vehicles to approach this area, as well as the rideshare zones. And here in the street end, as you can see, there is a valet zone that we have created with the valet stand. And this area would be for exclusive use of the valets so that they can, conduct their operations and conduct their turnarounds. Here, as we approach Ocean Drive, you can see that the road is raised and it's become a boulevard. This concept came, and it's a great concept that came from our planning department of putting the restaurants in the middle and creating a boulevard to either side that also allows for emergency access on either side of this of the corridor, which would enable emergency vehicles to access the corridor from all sides. So with that, that's the end of our video and the end of our presentation, and we'll be ready for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jose and Josiel. Love the air view there. That was very, very creative. Much appreciated. Tom Mooney now will present on zoning for 15 minutes, and then we'll bring it up to the virtual dais for a good hour discussion on transportation and zoning. Tom, you're up.
Sorry about that. Okay. My particular presentation is probably the most mundane out of the previous four, certainly not as colorful, and I don't have the really exciting videos, but it's also, from a policy standpoint, probably the most significant and probably the one area where you guys have gotten the most email and correspondence traffic from. And it pertains to zoning amendments and potential zoning incentives for the area. And when myself and my staff were charged with looking at the area, we really looked at it holistically. And the zoning amendments portion can be divided into two components. As the commission is aware, and this is the first component, there was a referral on July 29th, and three items were referred. Proposed amendments to Chapter 6, proposed amendments to Chapter 46, and proposed amendments to Chapter 142. There was also a separate referral pertaining to standalone bars in the MXC, and that's included as part of the proposed amendments to Chapter 142. I'll start with the most expansive and I'm sure what has been the one particular proposal that has gotten the most attention, and that is the proposed revisions to Chapter 6. And the proposed revisions to Chapter 6 would establish a new process for alcoholic beverage establishments. One of the things that it would do is it would roll back the closing time for existing packaged liquor stores from the current 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. And that would only be for package stores that are legal non-conforming because as you're aware, in the MXE district, package stores are no longer a permitted use. So we don't permit new package stores, but the ones that are existing are allowed to be open until 8 p.m. We're proposing to roll back their closing time to 5 p.m. The other major change is to roll back the closing time for the sale of alcoholic beverages in all alcoholic beverage establishments in the MXE area along Ocean Drive and Collins Avenue from the current 5 a.m. to 12 midnight. But contemporaneously with that, we would be proposing that a new process be set up that would immediately allow all businesses to request an extension of those hours back to their previous closing time, if it was 2, 3, or 5 a.m. And the reason that we had proposed doing this is in order to get a better handle and better operational control over a lot of the bad operators on Ocean Drive and Collins Avenue. And the way we approached it was rather than having a hard stop of 2 a.m. or a hard stop of midnight, operating after midnight should be considered a privilege and not a right. And too often, a lot of operators take advantage of that, and it's reflected in their operation. This would establish a process that would kind of level the playing field for everybody. And in order to have your hours extended past midnight, rather than giving that authority to an existing land use board like the Planning Board or the Board of Adjustment, we're proposing that a new board created called the Alcoholic Beverage and Operations Board. And the reason we suggested this is because we believe that such a board would be far more nimble and would be able to meet more regularly, not just in terms of taking action on new applications, but also in terms of regulating existing applications where there may be issues. Their role would be similar to the planning board in terms of reviewing operational aspects of a business and deciding whether or not to extend the hours. But there would only be 5 members as opposed to 7. We're proposing that the board members would be appointed by the city manager and then confirmed by the city commission. And the notice requirements and the fee requirements would not be as onerous as a regular land use board. We've, in addition to the summary of the zoning amendments, we have more details of how this board could be structured attached to the zoning amendments sub-memo that details that in Chapter 6. The next major change is to Chapter 46, and this is basically a strike through. What we're proposing to do is to strike through the current exemption of the noise exemption for those properties on Ocean Drive between 9th and 11th Street. And the reason we're proposing to do this is twofold. One, we want all the properties on Ocean Drive to be on a level playing field with regard to sound and noise. Currently, if you have properties in 1 to 2 blocks that can exceed that noise level, the properties to the immediate north and south of those blocks are going to need to compensate in some way. And then it sort of becomes a domino effect. This way, everybody's playing by the same rules. Secondly, the goal of the overarching goal of these regulations is not to put businesses out of business, but to get them to rethink their business model and basically take the party from the sidewalk in the street and place it back within the property. And by removing the noise exemption, we believe that that's going to facilitate a more uniform area behavior. And when you couple that with the proposals on pedestrianizing Ocean Drive and creating the seating zones in the middle of the street, it will create a much better active pedestrian environment, as well as allow for a much better transition into Loomis Park. Lastly, with regard to the first part of this, the proposed revisions to Chapter 142 in the MXE regulations, most of the changes that we proposed are cleanup and are not what we would call